22nd, 2019 meeting to order. A little tardy, apologies, 7:05. This agenda is subject to change and includes those items reasonably anticipated by the chair to be discussed at this meeting. Not all agenda items may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. This meeting is being broadcast live and taped and will be reshown numerous times by WACA television. Is there anybody else here recording of any capacity? I see the Metro West Daily News is here recording, duly noted. Seeing no other, we will start the meeting with citizens' participation. Is there anybody here for citizens' participation? Good evening.
Evening. Welcome from the cold, wintry Northeast finally. I would like to say happy month of January so far. No complaints, no nothing. I just came off the winter time of Ashland. And everything's healthy, wealthy, and maybe not as wise, but hey, it happens. I'm looking at the agenda, and I was thinking to myself, why can't you combine, and I looked at it again, the fiscal year 20 budget of the health nurse and the fiscal 19 budget update. Can they be put together, or they have to be separate?
It's all part of the same budget.
It's all part of the same budget, yeah, so. I mean, we're going to talk about it as an entirety, as, you know, as one, yes.
Okay. And let me see what else. I'm here to breathe fresh air too from all the federal government shutdown and all the television I've been watching, so live is good.
You know, Mark, you had me, when you started off with happy, I thought you were going to wish our health agent happy birthday today, because today's his Mark's birthday.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Thank you, thank you.
You're not old, you're just experienced. Right?
Yes.
So what a way to spend your birthday at a Board of Health meeting, so.
Where else?
So, happy birthday.
Bring in the cake. Yeah.
All right. Hey, Mark, can you go back up front? Because I want you to talk to people about why we have a bow on our table. Yeah, please. And talk about why it's important, maybe.
Oh.
And for Jake.
Yes. I didn't realize it until I saw him at a recent basketball game, and newspaper had a picture where Mr. Adams came up to hug him. I was at that same game, and I was told that he took a turn for the worse, and he has limited time left.
Yes.
And when I came up to the second meeting, the same, not a couple of nights after, I saw that bowl there. I kept on looking, and going, what's going on? What's going on? And then I went to the high school. I think it was the girls' basketball game, and they had all balls around the high school. Jake Silver, yeah. Everybody actually thought that he could have beat it early in his life, but it kind of hit home worse, as I was told. And to a person that is so young and so much left in his life, it's tough to see a person suffer. And so I said to him, when I went up to hug and shook his hand, I'll sit down after this and say, Godspeed, hang tough.
There you go. Well, one of Jake's requests on his bucket list, which is very upsetting, but he wants to meet Tom Brady. And the Patriots are going to have a Super Bowl rally on Sunday. And some of you know I do a radio show, and I have a lot of contacts in radio business. I reached out to the Patriots and John Dennis and Jerry Callahan, who interviews Tom Brady every day. So hopefully we're going to make that wish come true this weekend. So, but if you don't know, go to Jake's Facebook page and look for the bow and support Jake, because his great family, his mother Melissa and his father and his stepfather Tony have done wonders for this community. So it's a sad, sad story, but you know, they all need our thoughts and prayers. So good job, Mark. So thank you. Yeah. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll get down to business. Mill Pond Rest Home, review of a recent food inspection report. We have our food inspector, Tom, joining us here this evening. Kathy, I see you're here. Why don't you pull up a chair and we'll get going. Tom, if you want to take a lead on the conversation.
Well, actually, I may
Okay,
take
Mark.
the first roll. And back in between the two holidays, Christmas and New Year's, on the Friday, which would have been like December 28th, I received a call from the fire department, emergency call, that they were up at Mill Pond Rest Home. They got a call that there was a gas leak. So when they went up there, they shut off the gas to the stove. And since that time, I've asked Tom to investigate the status on a regular basis. So at this point, I'll leave it up to Tom.
Thank you, Mark. As Mark stated, on December 28th, the Friday evening, I received a call in the field from Mark Oram requesting an inspection be conducted at Mill Pond Rest Home at 84 Myrtle Street because of response from the fire department there. When I arrived on the scene, I observed the gas oven, which is the sole piece of cooking equipment in the kitchen, tagged by the utility company. The gas had been shut off to the unit. I was informed from the staff on site that the reason it was shut off is because they found an inferiority inside the unit and there was gas leaking from it. So I cited the establishment for violation 5-205.15 for plumbing installation and plumbing and disrepair, and advised them to repair the stove as soon as possible. I spoke with Kathy by phone. She informed me that they were gonna go to a contingency plan and serve the residents sandwiches until they could get that issue taken care of. On January 12th, 2019, I conducted a follow-up inspection. And in between Friday the 28th and January 12th, I had the opportunity to have conversation with Agent Oram and the plumbing inspector, and we came to the determination that there was several plumbing fixtures at the restroom that weren't installed up to code. And through further investigation, my findings were that there was inadequate means to sanitize equipment in the kitchen. The dish machine is not operating properly, or it was installed improperly, per the plumbing inspector. I then incited the establishment for lack of a 3-compartment sink. Was also told by on-site staff, and I've since learned that there is actually, I was told at the time of inspection that there wasn't a utility sink. I've been informed via email from the business, from the rest home, that there in fact is a utility sink to dispose of mop water, which is a new code requirement. Prior, in the prior code that we referred to, you used to be able to dispose of soiled mop water in a toilet or a direct waste drain. That's no longer the case. So you need a dedicated service sink to do so. The violation on the stove was still outstanding on January 12th. And in between these inspections, several emails going between myself, Mark Oram, Kathy, really didn't get much of a response from the rest home. In my opinion, a lack of a sense of urgency regarding the situation at hand. On January 16th, I conducted another compliance inspection and found the violations still outstanding. I then informed Agent Oram about the situation at hand, and he advised me to advise the management there to summon them before the board here tonight. I also want to point out that there's been quite a history of non-compliance at this facility. I feel like it's repetitious in nature. I have to keep revisiting the establishment to get them into compliance. I feel like there's an overall convoluted staff arrangement. I feel like there should be another certified person on site to take active managerial control of the food services there. I feel like there's a lack of communication every time I do conduct an inspection there. There's a different staff member there. It's really confusing as to who is responsible for the kitchen. Is there a menu in place? Is there any sort of a nutrition plan in place for these people? And all the violations aside, the human aspect of it. These folks have been eating cold sandwiches or out of a microwave since this whole incident happened on the 28th of December. Again, I said that's the sole piece of cooking equipment in the facility. In the code, that's inadequate means to maintain temperature control or heating temperatures. As you know, a microwave is pretty inconsistent for final cooking temperatures, and in my opinion, it's insufficient means to prepare bulk quantities of foods for the residents that dwell there. I was also informed, I'd like to inform the board also about on the 16th of January when I went there, the staff member on site said that she had been preparing meals in her home and bringing them to the facility. That is a violation of our code for unapproved source. I'd also like to recommend to the board that they request invoices from a licensed wholesale company as to where Mill Pond is getting their food from. I also would like to recommend an additional certified food protection manager be added to the staff there. I'd also like to see, I had requested in previous emails, last summer we encountered some insect activity in the exterior dry storage shed where they store dry food goods. And we got an initial pest control report, but we had requested, Mark and I, through emails, that we wanted to see monthly pest control reports. That coupled with the issue that Agent Orem dealt with regarding the bed bugs in the past, we wanted to see monthly updates of pest control reports. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think we've seen those to date.
I have not. Not monthly.
Yeah.
I did see one recently related to the bed bugs, but I have not seen any related to the storage facility for the food.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom, I'm sorry.
And the other thing, I looked at the Mill Pond Rest Home website, and it talks about dietary plans and tailored meals for residents and special diet cooking. I'd like to request more details on what that entails, what that means. Is there some sort of a menu in place? Is there a nutritionist on staff there? More of an organized approach to how the food services are run there, and and how. Menu, what do you use for recipes? Do we take into account the folks in that facility who are considered highly susceptible to illness? I know in the past that you've used raw shell eggs there, and I think we came to the agreement that you have to fully cook those if they're to be used to feed an elderly population. So I guess overall, just some more details as to what the food service entails, what kind of menu you're operating off of, who is responsible to prepare the meals, and where are you sourcing the food from. That concludes my testimony.
Questions from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair. And I'm hoping I could speak first only because I'm probably the newest person on this board. I'm just in my 12th month serving the board, and Mill Pond has been here at least 3 times in that 12 months. Maybe a 4th, I can't remember, but definitely 3. The last time they were here, it was an issue of safety. For me, it's all about the safety of the residents at Mill Pond. You know, how someone chooses to run a business, positively, negatively, I don't want to be too judgmental, but I can only go on what I hear and what I see and the evidence that's brought before us, and the investigations that we perform. And I am not convinced that the people in that home are safe long-term, and I don't think that, I don't have any sense that the management and administration of Mill Pond Nursing Home cares. That's my personal opinion. And I would recommend that we use the full power of our authority to protect those residents, whatever that means.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I feel that the response has been very slow, that Tom has really put down items that needed to be done, and I think they should stick to these recommendations that Tom has given, the must, and then having known and the facility has been running for a while, they shouldn't have let the home-cooked food come there from outside, unlicensed places. That they should have known. And that's a serious violation. We're putting at risk for all those people who are staying there, particularly the elderly population that's there. It's very susceptible for any kind of disease or foodborne illnesses. So
Agreed.
I think they should take more responsibility, or we should take severe action to curtail their
I agree.
continued irresponse.
Ron?
Tom, this, just for you, who's the onus on to make sure that things are up to code? So I'm guessing that oven is, 30 years old. I don't know. I'm
Right,
sure it's
right.
not up to code.
Yeah.
If something like that isn't up to code, but it's not leaking, is it somebody's responsibility from our department on our end to tell them that it's not in code anymore? Or is it incumbent upon them to know what acceptable code is and say, all right, this equipment is now out of code, we need to update this, and then get in touch with us if there's, any issues with that? Not to play devil's advocate, I don't
Right.
wanna,
Of course not, yeah.
slam them unintentionally, but I don't know whose it is. And I don't know
Yeah.
that the rest of the board does.
Right, and I'm not a plumber.
Right.
That's why I referred this issue to the plumbing inspector, and he informed me, and that's when I took decisive action and issued the violation. And I also noted in the report, and ultimately the onus is on the operator
Okay.
to make sure that, the facility is up to all applicable statutes, laws, state codes, building codes, sanitary codes. So ignorance of the law is no excuse,
No,
I guess, that
agreed.
old saying goes.
Yeah.
Things, I have no idea, in the past, how the stove was installed or who did it, was there a permit pulled? All those are expectations of the operator, that they would pull all applicable plumbing permits and make sure that the unit is up to code. I don't know I think it was a concerned resident that smelled gas. This could have been a worse situation than it was. And I think it kind of illustrates the importance of doing things, correctly.
Thank you.
Diane, do you have anything?
I'm assuming the stove's been fixed? No, it has not. Well, the stove,
Ron, can you pull that in front? So sure. People can, thank you.
I have a report. I had the manufacturer's rep come out, and the stove, it was found that several of the pilots were partially clogged. The stove is in workable order. However, we're not using it because we're waiting for a part to bring it up to compliance with the code, okay? We do have the rest home inspected by the state and by the town. And,
Hold that thought one
Oh.
second. So, have non-criminal violations been issued, because this would be considered critical, correct?
This is a critical violation.
have they
It's
been
or
issued a
the new code
non-criminal
calls it a
violation?
priority foundation, yeah, so it is certainly a critical issue.
Just for my,
Right.
just refresh my memory, because every single day is a violation, correct?
Every what?
Every day is a different violation for them not being.
Every day the
there.
stove is not
It's not.
up to run.
If it's
I
not
mean,
corrected.
they're in serious violation because they're by code required to correct this within 72 hours, being a priority foundation, and they haven't, this has been going on for weeks.
Okay.
Rich, we were unable to get the part. That was why we were unable to
Right.
do it. And because it's a life safety issue, you don't want to use the stove without bringing it up to code. Shea Hood
Right.
Plumbers, the part supposedly is going to be in on tomorrow, Wednesday, and we're scheduled to have it installed.
So what have you been doing for meals for your clients?
Actually, we've been doing a lot. We're not just having sandwiches. Okay, I bought a large capacity microwave, and then I also bought one of the one pots, which are absolutely wonderful. We cooked an 8-pound pot roast in it, and the meat was so tender you didn't even need a knife. Hobo stew in the crock pot, quite a lot of different meals. To be honest, there has not been any really change in the menu. We do have a dietitian that sets the menu. She comes every 3 months to review everything. We're very lucky in that we have a very young population at the rest home. The majority of them are on house diets. They don't need special diets, so.
I was gonna say, what's your response for, I mean, I understand what you're saying, that it's going to be, the part will be in tomorrow, but I mean,
Right.
we're almost 30 days into it here.
Right.
Okay. So
Yeah,
my thing is that each separate day of a violation is a $100 fine, if I remember correctly, for non-criminal?
Is that how the fee structure is?
I don't remember, well,
I'd have
let's say
to
it's
check.
the lowest, let's say it's $25. So I
Yeah.
don't know, I don't know what's going to get the management's attention, because clearly I think we all
Well,
feel the same way.
I mean, I have no control over the pot
I know, but
coming in.
if, unfortunately, the manager, owner of the facility couldn't be
Mhm.
here because he's ill, but what's it gonna take to get a response? Because like he had said, I mean, I have not seen you before, but you've been here multiple times.
Mhm.
And if it's a matter of coming there every single day to issue a violation to get somebody's attention, because clearly nobody's paying attention, whether you're doing something in a crock pot or something like that, clearly this is a violation. It needs to be fixed within 72 hours. We're almost 30 days into it.
Right, but if the pot's unavailable, what do you do?
You
Well,
replace the stove.
so-
Exactly,
Replace
or
the
you
stove.
get a loaner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh.
If it's that
Go
difficult
to
to get the
Belcher's
part,
Appliance
then
down
we
the
think
street.
that-
I'm sure they'll loan you one. Lowe's, do something.
I mean, to Diane's
A
point.
non-commercial,
To Diane's
yeah.
point, and I've been
Oh, yeah,
biting my
okay.
tongue since you sat down tonight, because I've been dealing with you and your lackadaisical caring of your residents for 15 years, and I am sick and tired of it. The last time we brought you to in front of this board, I would have thought with some common sense, you would have got your act together. You quite obviously haven't, and your behavior is the only thing that I can dictate off of. And your behavior dictates you don't care, and I am sick of it. We told you as a board, and we have been more than accommodating as a board. You need help, you pick up the phone and you call us. You pick up the phone and call me, I'd have a stove with you within 24 hours. And you're gonna sit here today and tell me the part's not coming in until tomorrow? I'm sorry. I've seen this movie too many times, I know the result. I'm gonna recommend to the board, and via a motion, that I draft a letter to the state and they do a full investigation on the way you conduct your rest home, because I am sick and tired of it. I've given you every opportunity to clean up your act, and you haven't done it, and now we're gonna have to come down hard on you.
Okay.
And I also that was one of my notes here, because I absolutely think we need to do that. I absolutely think that you need to go back and do more inspections. They will pay for every inspection that you do. We can set the limit, whatever we choose to do. And we need to get the state's attention and find out what's going on here.
I'd also like to advise the chair, to Mark and I's knowledge, there still hasn't been a plumbing permit pulled for this.
It's not gonna be installed, I mean, it's not
Right.
gonna be, the part's
Right.
gonna be in tomorrow. I mean, it's,
But Kathy, I hate to be so hard on you, but it's like, what do I have to do to get
Deserved.
your attention? I mean, how many times have I told you over the years, you need something, you pick up the phone? The resources of this board and of this town, we could have had that problem fixed overnight. And you're
Well-
making meals at home, and you're gonna tell me
No,
with a
we're not
straight
making meals
face?
at home. The,
So you're
workers-
calling my food
no,
inspector
I'm
a
not-
liar?
No, I am not.
Well, that's what you're doing by
No,
saying that.
the food service workers told him that because she thought he wanted to hear it. But anyway, that's besides the point. When this happened, the town plumber was not available. He was on vacation.
The town plumber.
you
Town inspector, whatever.
can you feel my eyes burning you?
I was gonna say, you
No.
wanna retract that
There's two
statement?
people, and you know that very well. One's the inspector and one's the person that you're hiring. They work off of each other. Don't tell me that neither one of them are available to come out and help you, because that's wrong. I know
Okay, I
it's
wasn't
wrong.
aware of that. I wasn't aware that there were two people.
But why
Yeah,
is
the
it
one that
always,
you're hiring is a plumber, and he's also the assistant. And then the one who's the plumbing inspector does work as well. They work off each other. There's two people at all times working in the plumbing department, all the time.
Okay.
why does it always come to this, though? I mean, and I guess
We're
that's
not
what my,
stupid.
we're not, and you don't forget, Diane works inside these four walls every day. Why does it always come to this? And the reason I have to ask this, because it's gonna be part of my letter. Why do we have to bring you in here and do this to make you do the basics for these people? I don't understand that. There has to be a reason why. Is it a financial situation? Is it an apathy situation?
Well,
Is it that
finances-
you don't understand the law?
No, finances are very tight there, very tight.
Okay.
I'll admit that.
Okay. And,
That shouldn't
but
compromise
that,
the
that
life
should not
we are.
that should not
Yeah.
compromise.
If you can't
public
afford to
safety.
stay in business, close your doors.
Then, exactly, then close your doors. All right, so I made an.
I will
emo-
make that
made a motion
recommendation.
that-
Second.
Second, okay.
Okay.
Further discussion?
Do we want to include more inspections, or do we want to wait until after we
Well-
contact the state?
Well, I'll contact the state, but I also want to go down,
Okay.
but let's finish up the motion. So I'm going to draft a letter to the state. It's been seconded. Further discussion?
If I might add, Judy Bernice from the state has been in dialogue with us as well throughout this, via email, between Mark and myself.
Okay, thank you for that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? That's
Aye.
unanimous.
And I
But
don't,
I do want to go
I
over
don't
all
know
the suggestions.
who
okay?
we should CC on it, but I'm not convinced that we shouldn't CC a lot of people on this letter.
I'm going to CC everybody I know up at Beacon Hill, and I know a lot of people up in Beacon Hill, so, yeah.
What's happened to all those recommendations that Thomas made,
Well, I was going to say, let's go through those. Let's vet those.
way to enforce that?
Make sure on the local side too, Tom, the Board of Selectmen.
Right,
and the town
absolutely,
manager.
Board of Selectmen, yep. So the first suggestion that Tom made is that the board request the invoices. And
For the food that
For
they
food.
supply.
for the food.
And they also
Receipts
said
from the
they need
local
to hire
wholesaler.
another
Right.
another CFM to hire.
And then
Monthly
mandatory
pest control report.
certified protection manager, which is, we want to see the pest control reports,
Our monthly, yeah.
the monthly reports.
Of the areas where the food is stored.
And the nutrition menu info.
And I want the nutritionist to either meet with Mark or it'd be my recommendation, the nutritionist either meet with Mark or Tom to
Fine.
set you guys at, did we miss anything?
And that would entail them providing us with a menu, so we know, what exactly they're preparing there.
And what do we do about the current situation for the stove?
I feel like the food should be sourced until they have means to prepare foods on site. Food should be, moving forward, should be sourced from a licensed commercial catering operation that can deliver it under temperature control and serve it safely. That's my recommendation.
Kathy, you said the part is being delivered tomorrow.
Correct. But that's what Mark Shaho told me.
So you're telling me that you'll have the stove operational by this time tomorrow?
That's what he said.
Who is he?
Mark Shahood, the plumber.
Do we know him?
Oh, we know
That's,
them.
that's to bring it up to code. The stove is operational now.
So
We
what's
have
the
not been
contingency
using it.
plan if
Right,
tomorrow
but the
night?
stove has not been inspected and authorized for you to
Correct.
use as a, just for clarification.
Correct.
You're saying from a manufacturer that it's operable, but that's not approved to be working.
Right.
Right.
So it's 7 o'clock tomorrow night. The part has been in, but we haven't inspected it.
Well, if they're, I mean, they're gonna have to pay for an outside caterer
Well,
until.
and that's my
Right,
point.
yeah.
Okay.
That's my point. We're
To
talking
your-
breakfast, lunch, and dinner,
That's,
right?
They should keep Tom informed about what's going on a daily basis until they bring it up.
Well, I mean, from personal and professional, the part's supposed to show them up tomorrow. There's been bad weather, there's been flight delays, I mean, maybe it doesn't show up tomorrow. I think Diane brings up a good point. Catered meals 3 times a day
until further notice.
until we can get back out to
Until-
inspect the
right, Until
facility.
it's properly inspected
Right,
and
right.
been approved, right.
And we'll need to see those invoices as well.
You know, John, as a courtesy to the town's town management and boards of health in the towns where they run their other facilities. I might include them on their distribution, on your distribution list.
Okay.
Because if they're running their other facilities like they're running this one, then those are a problem too. We have no jurisdiction, but at least we can
At least the
certainly,
information goes there, saying
Yeah.
this is their behavior.
yeah.
Kathy, anything further to add?
No.
All right, so when would be the most reasonable time that, assuming, not tomorrow, but, what, Thursday, we could get in there and inspect?
Tomorrow?
I'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, that's right, tomorrow's
Yeah.
Wednesday, you're in
Yeah.
town tomorrow.
I think tomorrow's a good day.
Mhm.
But what's your plan for the breakfast for tomorrow morning, now that we've just
Well,
mandated the catering?
There's only about 6 people that eat breakfast, and they eat cereal and milk and toast, by preference.
Am I missing something here? How many residents do you have?
Right now, 19.
And only 6 of them eat breakfast?
Mm-hmm,
But the board just mandated that you cater it, and
right.
what I heard, you're disregarding that mandate.
No, I can have cereal catered.
I think
I mean, that's what they eat, that's what they want. It's Cheerios. I mean, they're creatures of habit. I mean, they don't want anything
Probably
else.
the puzzled look on probably everybody's face, including people from the audience, is we assumed that you provided a well-balanced meal for breakfast tomorrow morning, is what.
We do, but they have the right to refuse it, and they have the right
Correct.
to get what they want, and they want Cheerios. No other cereal, it has to be Cheerios.
I don't know what, I don't,
I don't even know how to respond to it.
I know,
You know, I felt bad for snapping at you, but now I don't, so.
yeah.
I don't.
That's what they
I mean,
asked for even
this is
last
just
dinner.
I mean,
totally
that-
unacceptable. This is
No.
totally unacceptable.
That's what they want. That's, I mean,
I can suggest also,
Your website says specially tailored
Yeah.
Right,
meals.
especially, yeah, it's your own.
well, that's
it's your
what they
own document.
want.
Okay.
I mean,
Especially
and let me ask this question, because I don't have the answer, and I hope we don't need to ask, but what are you required to give them? I would hope that you would be above what the requirement would be.
we have a menu for breakfast, but most of the time they refuse it. They want Cheerios
So
and
does the
milk.
state require you to have a menu in the morning for your clients?
Yes, but the
Okay.
residents have a right to refuse it.
But you're required to have a menu
Mhm.
tomorrow morning.
Right.
So if you're required by the state, and you're
Mhm.
required by this board, you need to do something besides cereal and milk for breakfast. We're requiring it, and the state licensed you, and you're required to do that.
And did you draft an emergency response plan in terms of having backup meals in case of an interruption of power or utility?
It's in the disaster manual, I
You
believe.
have a disaster
Yeah.
manual,
Yeah.
taking into account the flood this past September?
We
and-
mandated that the last time
Yeah.
Kathy
Yeah.
was here, yes.
So wouldn't this fall under an emergency? I'm gonna answer it for you and say yes.
Yes.
I'm gonna answer it for you. So if you have an emergency plan, you and the owner of the facility should be implementing on, like, the day it happens, not almost 30 days later. And it's not, it doesn't constitute a response. I'm just giving you my opinion that
Right.
you were required to put a plan together. I was not at that meeting, but you were required to put a plan together, and you're still not implementing the plan
And
that you
we,
put together.
no, we do have a plan, and we're still feeding the residents the meals that are on the menu.
But that's not what, the state requires you to have something different, right? The state requires you to have a balanced meal for your clients.
Correct.
Whether they refuse it or not, you're not meeting
So
their
we
requirements.
still have to do it, yes.
So if I pick up the phone tomorrow at 7:30 in the morning, and everybody at this table knows I will, and I talk to the state, and I ask them about their balanced menu plans, regulations for rest homes, you're gonna tell me that when I tell them that you offer them Cheerios, that's gonna be an acceptable answer?
No, we,
No, it's not.
Okay, so
we
then,
give them
then
what they want.
stop it right
Yeah.
now.
Follow-
Why, what, this is just bizarre. This is just bizarre.
Well, I think it shows the importance to write this letter.
Right.
Because we license you for food, but we don't license you for a nursing home.
Right, correct.
Okay, right.
It's not a nursing home.
Rest home.
Rest home, excuse me, I was gonna say, what does it say on the
rest of
rest home? But we don't license you for that. So the only thing we can do is report to the state what we find to be inadequate for your facility. And then, the only other thing I can recommend is in the future, if there is a violation, you are to receive a fine from day one. Because once we start hitting management's pocket, I think we're gonna get somebody's attention really fast. And I hope it is $100 a day.
It basically
Hope it's
is
$1,000.
critical
That's the most we can
violations.
do.
Oh,
It's,
Cheerios.
Thank you,
well,
Michael.
it's not, but for critical violations, you'd be at $6,000 right now. Because after 3 days, the fine starts. The first day would have been January 1st at 100. The second day would have been January 2nd at 200. The other 19 days would have been 300 a day.
Can we implement one now?
You could charge $6,000 right now on a non-criminal fine.
I move that we do so.
I'll second that motion.
It's based on consecutive critical violations. It could be issued.
Further discussion?
I don't think we're gonna get it.
I would suggest that
It's all part of our report then.
maybe make it as a warning that it will start tomorrow at the 100, then the 200, then the 300.
Tom,
If
how many,
this was
sorry,
the-
how many
if this was
times
the
have you
first
been out
time,
there?
I would
3
agree
times?
with you, but this is
Right,
the
how many-
first time.
Three
You've been out
times.
there
Oh,
3
no, I
times?
know.
Yes.
So the reinspection fee alone, reinspection fee, well, would actually be 2, right? Reinspection,
If he's done more than one reinspection, then we add each reinspection after that first.
You know, I just want to remind the board, and
Figuratively.
maybe it's overemphasizing, that these people are placed in this facility with trust that their loved ones are going to be taken care of. And I don't think there's anybody in this room right now who believes that their loved ones are being taken care of.
Not a chance.
There's not a chance. So to me, that is reprehensible. So, like I said, I second the motion. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, Kathy, we'll be in touch tomorrow.
Okay.
Incidentally, John, my memory says that there was no specific things about the meal arrangement during the disaster plan. I think that was only for relocation or something like that. But we need to check on the disaster plan to see.
Which
what
there's
they
no
do.
evidence that they've ever contacted anyone for that either.
Yeah, but I think the,
You
whatever
didn't ever
disaster plan
receive the
they did, I
disaster
don't
plan?
think that covered the
Did you
meal.
ever
No,
get that,
the-
Mark?
the-
Before, Kathy?
We
Kathy, hang,
received,
just, if you don't mind,
yeah,
just, did we get what we were looking
for
for?
the purpose of the kitchen,
No.
I'd have to look back. I know you submitted some
Okay,
of your
that's okay, we can
disaster
look.
planning that you submitted to the state. I'm
We
not,
submitted all of it.
I'm not for sure if it had any part in there as it relates to failure in the kitchen.
Were you here when she said that they should call it the two churches?
I believe it did.
I also emailed you a guidance manual
I saw
from
that.
the state website that
You know,
brings you through how to develop
I call it both churches.
an emergency action plan.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Talk to
just-
you tomorrow.
And just so the board knows, I will check with our legal counsel if we have to be there to cite the consecutives, or if we already know it from testimony, if we can just do a consecutive.
Sure.
Because then it'll make a difference one
Yep.
way or the other.
So the one
Yeah, and
question I
just-
would have.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, just for clarification, I was totally on
Yeah.
board with issuing a $6,000 fine, because
Yeah.
I
Right.
totally support that. I don't think they have the means to pay it, and I think they
Well,
need to
that-
change their
that's fine.
practice.
But the
Disability.
question I have is, so the state is what licenses their ability to operate as a rest home,
Right, which is different than a.
which
nursing home.
requires them to be able to serve food in a safe manner, right? Now, they can't serve food in a safe manner unless we say they're serving food in a safe manner, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, something to think about.
Yep. Good point. All right.
So, John, just
Please.
from your perspective, so is she kind of like the fall guy for the upper management here? You know, I mean, I know she was taking a lot of the blame, but if she reports to them that, hey, this part isn't gonna be in for 3 weeks, and they know that it's 72 hours, assuming that they do know that, then that's just egregious.
I can only give you my
Exactly.
personal history on this. And
I'd
back,
be su-
back from my selectman days when I dealt with Mill Pond, and the first time I actually worked with Mark, the sense of urgency wasn't there 15 years ago.
Right.
in the sense of urgency today that I see. I mean, we had them in front of the board just over the summer, over something that we probably don't want to get into right now, though, either. And you were here.
Right.
Was the sense of urgency there?
No.
No. And Kathy lives in town, right? Doesn't she?
Yes.
She's an Ashland resident, yeah. So, I mean, this is in our own backyard.
It's
and
disgusting.
It's been years and years of, we've walked the fine line of what we can do as a local board versus with the state. And, you
We
know,
have 19
management came in
residents,
here
but we're
last
only gonna
time
give
and
6
said,
of them
hey, you have
Cheerios."
my word, you know, we're gonna button this stuff up. And then, oh, look at that, the day of the meeting, we get an email from them going, oh, yeah, we're gonna fix it, we're gonna fix it. Why? It's always that way. When they know they're gonna be called on the carpet, then they're gonna finally fix it, so. I mean-
Our emails were largely ignored up until about the
That's a
last
much
few
better
days.
story, I think, than the tobacco.
I think we also, in general, as a board, not specific for you, as a board, that if there's a violation like this, that we need to get on the horn, whether it's a certified mail letter, phone calls, or whatever, to the state. I mean, 30 days is a long time. I mean, we haven't had a meeting and have the availability, but the people who license this facility, for the safety of those people, need to be notified immediately when we have a violation like that.
Yeah, I have an email chain.
Oh, I know, but
Yeah.
I mean, we need to,
We could've got a stove, we could've got a stove a shiny new stove delivered.
should-
We
and
would've
they-
never
yeah.
talked about costs, we would've got it delivered and set up and within 24 hours, so. I mean, the fact that we're 30 days into this, and I think
Agreed.
your theme supports what I'm saying, is the apathy is, everything's largely involved until they know they're in trouble. And I wanna stress that when you put your loved ones in this facility, you would think that the sense of urgency to do things the right way would be paramount, and they're not. I mean, time after time, I mean, history is dictating my anger tonight. If this was the first time and it was a one-off, okay, we'll fix it, but it's not. It's not. All right, I'm a little conflicted on the agenda, because we have 15 minutes before we're gonna talk about nicotine at 8 o'clock, and I wanna stick to that out of respect to people's time. We cannot possibly do the budget in 15 minutes. So if the board so wishes, I think we can do this next one. The Mary Mortensen Public Health Award, discuss nominees, if we wanna take a vote to take it out of order on the agenda.
So moved.
Second that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, so the Mary Mortensen Public Health Award is an award that we started last year to honor our former chairman, and how ironic on the night when we're gonna talk about tobacco. Mary was paramount in the state with getting Ashland to be a 21 and over community, and we were one of the very first. Well, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll talk to you tomorrow, thank you.
All right.
Great job,
Thank you.
great job. Thank you. And we came up with the award last year, as you guys remember, we gave it to Ed Hart, who I think was a very, very well-deserving individual. So tonight, we're gonna discuss possible nominees.
Yeah, but should we not supposed to make sure that people also recommend other than us recommending?
Well,
I
it's
thought-
our award, so.
I know, I understand, but
we could receive nominations.
We
Is
could-
that how
we
you-
could-
yeah,
Yeah,
so
we
you
could
probably
receive
put a
nominations.
deadline date and then announce it saying that they should submit the nominations for this award and then bring it, because.
Well, when we
missed
drafted the
that-
laws
we
last
missed that
year,
last time, so
well, when we drafted the law last time, we made it like it would be a board decision, but I'm open to
I
other
think,
decisions.
Now, did you do it publicly last time? I wasn't involved. Or did you talk
yeah, I
about the
wasn't
Yep,
even
we talked
publicly,
about
the debate was, the voting was done public, but the nominations was limited.
done.
So that's the first time that we could, so we suggested at that time that we should open it for other boards or other members in the community to recommend names and then make a decision based on that.
And we typically do it at our second meeting in March, which would be what, March 22nd, March 23rd?
I can check.
So do you think we should,
Well, I have an interesting nomination.
March 19th, John.
Would be March 19th. That I don't think anybody at this table could say no to, but I'm interested to hear other people's thoughts.
I had 2 in mind.
Okay?
One was thinking about the idea, since it's a very new award,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea is individuals or organizations, I thought that maybe an organization for the second one,
Okay.
after an individual, would be a nice way to kind of show the balance of the award.
Mm-hmm.
And I had initially thought of the Ashland Lions,
Nice.
but I think, after more careful thought, the Decisions at Every Turn Coalition would get my vote.
Another very nice one.
Mhm.
I would agree with that.
Any other suggestions?
I think we should probably put a deadline date and say, send the names by March
Mm.
1st or something, and then
Okay.
collect it. Mark could receive those names, and then we can work on that.
Something that, just to kind of, since it's really new and we do these kind of things on campus in different forms, you know,
Yeah.
employee recognition and
Good
stuff like that. Something we might want to consider is creating a nomination form.
Mhm.
Who do we nominate, individual, organization, rationale?
Right.
And you can leave it anonymous if you want.
Okay.
And this way, there's some food for thought. Some, you know, people may not know of an organization that's, or a person that's, the work that they've done. That information could be used by people who are voting to help make them clear around the decision.
Any other
Yeah,
suggestions?
it might be difficult for you to present, but I think given your history with the board and with the town, and given your situation with stepping down, that you would be an excellent candidate for that award.
Oh, well, that's very kind of
the
you, but no,
achievement that-
but no.
And all the
I'd
time
vote against
that you've given. I don't know that you can.
But that's very nice of you,
can,
Ron.
But you, you know, you've really done a lot for the town for a long, long time, and couldn't
very
think of
nice of you.
anybody more deserving than you to receive that award.
Well, thank you. And in that same, and I sincerely mean that, that's very nice of you, thank you. And in that same vein is when I came up with my suggestion. My nominee has done far more than I could ever do in this town, and that would be Senate President Karen Spilka. What she's done for Down syndrome, autism, dementia, public safety building in this town, I couldn't think of, you know, not that nobody else's nominations were good, but, I mean, we're blessed that the Senate President is our resident, number one, and number two, you know, oftentimes, you know, the Boston Globe will call me as the chairman of the Republican Party and say, what, you got a comment on Karen Spilka? And my comment is always positive, and the next response is, well, you're a Republican. I'm like, but it still doesn't mean that Karen's not a great human being and doesn't do a great job for the community. And they're always kind of surprised that, you know, I wouldn't take a shot at her, and I'm like, why would I? Because she cares about my community, she devotes herself to my community, and why? She does a great job, so.
I think in just a few minutes, we've demonstrated that creating the award was probably a good idea, because we are blessed with
So many
a lot
choices,
of people that deserve it, and I think, you know, whoever gets nominated is great, whoever wins it's great, but all those nominations will carry over, because
Right, right.
everyone still deserves it
Yep,
at some point.
carry over in
they'll
time.
get their-
So do March 1st, didn't we?
So a deadline of March 1st? You guys in agreement on that, or do you,
Yeah.
or
Sounds
do you
good to
want to
me.
vote, or do you want to vote on a suggestion from tonight? Either way.
That could be informally consensus.
I'm sorry?
That could be a general consensus, we don't have to vote on it.
You may want to consider two applicants, a group, such as the Lions or Decisions at Every Turn, and an individual. You're not locked in to any criteria, so that's another possibility if you wish to do like a group and an individual.
Two is what you mean.
See how the nominations come in, I
Yeah,
guess, right?
you can give us some food for thought.
All right, so we're gonna make a deadline of March 1st? Or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Make a
Mark?
motion.
Yeah.
So we're in good with that?
Yeah.
Do we need to do that in the form of a motion, or are we just good with it?
Sounds
Go
right.
with general consensus, do we need a vote on it?
I don't think so.
I don't think
we're all in
anybody's,
agreement.
yeah, okay, so we'll do that, okay.
And Mark will be the repository for all the information that.
Anybody with a good singing voice that can kill 5 minutes?
Well, why don't we do our review of our minutes of our January 15th meeting?
No, sorry, it's not ready.
No?
Look at our meetings
Well, we're
moving
just,
right along.
we're moving right along then, all right. All right, so let's discuss future agenda topics and meeting dates while we have a few minutes to, so we just agreed that we were gonna do, so that'll lead us into our first meeting in March, February.
Which is the 5th.
I guess the only thing that I would say, going back to what we said of March 1st, that might not be enough time to schedule somebody if they have to be here. You know, 1st to the 19th, it's only like 2 weeks' notice. Is that enough time for people, or?
Well, we can, you know, if we have to schedule the presentation to meet someone's schedule, that's fine.
Okay,
It could be awarded later,
okay,
if you can get the names and then
okay.
firm up who they are by 19, that'd be nice.
So on paper, we're supposed to meet on the 5th and the 19th of March. Is that good for everybody's schedule? Okay.
And the 19th.
Any suggested or recommended,
February
no,
and
excuse
March.
me.
February 5th and the 19th.
Yep, February and March are both the same.
Yeah.
Right.
totally.
Yeah, 5th and 19th. Any agenda items anybody wants to put on for now?
19th is Mary's birthday.
Hopefully, if I'm not tired, I'll be
Mary's
there.
birthday?
Are we gonna follow up with whatever goes on today, or is that gonna be considered closed to us at that time? From
Let
Right.
you know what about
We
now.
just put them right after citizens' participation at every meeting.
Let you know what about now. But you guys have no,
5th, if I'm super tired, I won't come, otherwise I'll be here
because you're coming back?
on that day.
You guys all saw the letter that we received today about Eversource, right?
We did not,
did
it was
see
raining all
something.
day today.
We got a letter from a resident about the Eversource issue that we're having. Okay. That might be a topic that we want to put on.
Here it is, yeah.
Okay.
Gas pipeline replacement,
I
yeah.
did see that letter, but what is our jurisdiction over it? Only when it actually is being installed, correct?
Yeah, and
mean,
I
I had it-
personally feel that we can ask the state if we have anything further than general air, water pollution, anti-idling from their equipment. I would probably call MAHB's attorney of the day, Cheryl Sabar, who's in our audience right now. They're questioning what is our jurisdiction as a Board of Health as it relates to replacing a gas line through
You're gonna
the
refer
town.
us to our own town council, because we should probably start with her. Sorry,
I knew you were
Cheryl.
gonna say that. Yes, that's fine. We can ask Lisa,
Okay.
Attorney Mead.
Yeah, if there is interest, I think next month, the 28th is the Monday, right?
Yep,
Yes.
That's when Concom will hear the
again.
Eversource. No, they didn't hear last time because
Oh, they
there's no quorum of members
Oh.
available that
Is
time.
that a public hearing, or is that just a
It's a public
discussion?
hearing. So
On Monday, this coming Monday?
no, the next Monday. So I'm not there, so 28th.
No, the 28th would be this Monday.
Oh, this Monday, correct.
Okay, right, okay. Do you know what time?
7 o'clock at
They
usually
booked them
starts.
all at 7.
All right, that should be an interesting one to go
Mm.
to. I'm gonna try to make that
Get
one.
a chance to make it,
Yeah.
I'm not there, so.
You're not there?
No, I'm
Okay.
off tomorrow.
All right, good.
You know,
So
I'm
other than
wondering,
that,
In light of this Eversource thing, it brings up some interesting things. You know, there's the situation not too long ago up in the North Shore
mhm,
with the gas pipe.
Columbia Gas, yeah.
Explosion, Columbia Gas. I don't know if you're familiar with the situation in Rhode Island, in Newport and Middletown. National Grid has cut off the gas supply out of certain concerns. And now, right in our own town, we're talking about restoration. So I'd be interested in measuring the pulse of public sentiment
mhm.
and fear, concerns, and addressing them.
Well, Diane knows him very well, and he used to work at the end of our hallway when Metro West Regional Collaborative used to be at our hallway, but Andrew Flanagan is now the town manager of North Andover. He might be a good resource that we tap for this conversation, because he has lived the nightmare of dealing with, you know, the Columbia gas explosion.
Yeah.
So I'll reach out to him, and maybe he can add some content, or at least some recommendations at
Mhm.
least, yeah, so,
Yeah, and a couple of things is just for full disclosure, I am an abutter to the project.
okay.
The gas line is currently there. I
Mhm.
don't know if, same thing, I'm assuming they're gonna replace, I mean, I've been to meetings about this before, but, my understanding is they're replacing it for a reason, so I also don't want to do the opposite, is prevent them from replacing it. But
Right.
from what I understand, the route that they're going, that conservation is looking at, is not the desired route.
Mhm.
And the town has petitioned the state for them to go an alternate route.
Mhm.
So I don't know that it's gonna be happening overnight, but at least if we have some type of a say in it, or have, get more information for our department, it would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be good. Okay. All right, it's 8 o'clock. We're gonna talk about tobacco. Thank you for everybody's patience. This meeting wasn't supposed to go this way, but it did. All right, we're gonna discuss and possible vote on regulations of the Ashland Board of Health restricting the sale of tobacco and nicotine products and delivery systems. To be fair, as we always try to be, if anybody has any new comment, and stress the word new comment, or did not get to comment last week at our meeting, we will open that up for public discussion now. If anybody has anything new, please.
Can I hand out again?
You just have to identify yourself and your name and address. Thank you for coming.
I think I fall into the second category, which is didn't have a chance to speak last time. This may or may not be new. I wasn't here. So my name is John Scher. I'm the Executive Director of the New England Convenience Store and Energy Marketers Association. Our membership consists of single-site convenience stores, chain convenience stores, transportation fuel distributors, and the businesses which supply all of them. According to NACS, approximately 50% of the population visits convenience stores on a daily basis. These stores provide valuable services to their communities by providing staple products families need when they need them most, and are the in-person trained gatekeepers for legal age-restricted products, including tobacco and nicotine. Ashland's retailer stands with the Board of Health and Tobacco Control when it comes to keeping nicotine and tobacco products out of the hands of kids. There is 100% compliance in this town, which is remarkable. That outpaces the state. That outpaces most communities within the state. And that has been going on since 2016. The town has issued retailers licenses to responsibly retail these products. That's exactly what they've done. They've done it for over 2 years. They should be commended. Instead, they're here, faced with possible restriction of those mint, wintergreen, and menthol products from their stores. There's no doubt that a problem still exists. Yet in the absence of any evidence supporting youth are accessing these products at retailer stores, they are here to hear possibly if these products will be pulled from those stores. Retailers are already faced with a number of deterrents for selling to minors. Compliance checks, fines, license revocation, the threat of being shamed in their communities, and the sense of doing what's right. And that all contributes to the 100% compliance. Yet the internet, friends, family assume no responsibility because there aren't any ramifications for them trying to sell to minors, or the minors themselves from attempting to purchase or use or possess those products. Until that loop is closed, the problem will always exist. If the Board of Health is truly serious about keeping adolescents away from nicotine, it will employ something to close that loop. Finally, I recognize that business harm isn't what this board concerns itself with generally, I assume. But it can't be understated how important this particular product is to those convenience stores. It represents not just a significant percentage of any store's revenue, but it contributes largely to the market basket. And for those of you not in the retail business, the market basket is the other things that people buy when they come in for those products that they typically come in for. Repeat customers, gas, cigarettes, milk, bread, the staples. From what I understand at the last hearing, there was an offer to introduce or to participate on a task force. I just don't see any harm in doing that. It will offer all sorts of conversations and opportunities to explore something that may actually get us all to where we want to get to, which is kids not using these products. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions? I do, and it's not going to be a fair question, and I'll preface it that my concern is the marketing of juuling and vaping. And you as a convenience store expert, the FDA has come out and said, hey, this is a horrible product. The FDA originally stimulated this conversation and said, we recommend a ban of it. There's even chatter that over the past weekend that if Juul does not stop marketing to youth, they're going to come down on it. So the FDA is saying flat out that Juul and vaping companies are marketing to youth. And then I walk into not any one convenience store to name them here, but we received some correspondence over the weekend from people too. They're marketing this to youth. Is that a fair question to you as a?
It's really not a fair question to me.
Okay.
Because I know what you know.
Okay.
I don't have any inside knowledge of how they get, how they get around the.
But something marked lower, not to
Yeah,
interrupt you, and I
sure.
apologize, but something that is at eye level, or, below, like it would be at eye level to a younger child, you cannot convince me is just dumb coincidence. To me, it seems targeted. And the placements of them they seem targeted. So the industry, in my opinion, not the board's opinion, my opinion, is that they're marketing this fully to youth.
Well,
I'll back you on that, on my personal side.
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there are certainly a number of things I suppose that this board could do with respect to that, if that was truly its concern. But I think what we're talking about here, if I may,
Sure.
is a ban on mint, menthol, and wintergreen products, right?
Correct.
And tobacco. We haven't reinstated tobacco.
Right.
So
That's
right
going
now
to be
it's
a
all-
question for
Right
council.
now, it's all four.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the gentleman
Right
said.
now, it bans tobacco, wintergreen, mint, and menthol.
And tobacco, so all vape flavors, right? So
At the
including
price-
tobacco.
Well, the
The
board
propo-
hasn't
the
discussed it
proposed, right, we
yet, the
haven't, right.
proposed.
That's the current.
That's the current proposal.
Okay, and may I ask why? Because, and the reason I ask is, this, going back 4 years ago, when Needham was the first town among the first towns to do this, I happen to live in Needham, so I'm well aware of it. It was all about the cotton candy flavors and the fruity flavors, right? And that was the those were the alluring flavors, the egregiously alluring flavors to children. I don't think anybody in this room is gonna argue that, right? I think it'd be a fool to do so, right? And those were pulled. Those flavors were pulled from this town and over 130 other towns across the state. Yet kids are still using these products. And those same products, because you can very easily go on the internet and get them. So I guess my question is, how is pulling mint, wintergreen, menthol, and tobacco flavored, which were never really products that any board of health across the state was worried about kids using? Otherwise, they would have pulled those when they pulled the cotton candy 4 years ago. So what's changed?
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but I do have an answer, but I want to give the board an
Well,
opportunity.
if you look at what people presented as far as data goes, if those aren't available, those were basically grandfathered in. I think Cheryl Sabara spoke about that as well. So those are still flavors. It's not just plain old tobacco. So if those others aren't available, that's the conduit that now is in use that these kids go for.
But the
That's what
stores
it
aren't,
is.
but the stores aren't selling them to them.
I'm sorry?
But the stores aren't selling them.
I wish I could have agreed that we had 100% compliance in this town. I really do wish I could agree with you, but we don't.
How can you demonstrate that?
We've got the data.
What data do you have? I mean, the data that I have is from FDA compliance.
This board has
We
personally
do.
fined retailers this year, unfortunately, because they've sold tobacco.
FDA came into our town, I think, once in 3 years.
Is that the
We
data?
have
that-
our own,
No, go ahead, sir.
We-
We're having a conversation.
No, I know, I don't want to interrupt.
we
you,
have our
John.
own compliance
I can't say his name.
inspector, and he's been out there doing compliance reviews, and we have had vendors selling to minors,
You've had retailers selling to minors.
retailers.
Retailers.
You know, if I can also, one of the points that I brought up last week too, you know, even if we are in 100% compliance, let's just say the retailers in our town are 100% compliant and they're not selling to underage people, we do know the underage people are getting the product.
Without
right?
question.
Now, where they're getting it, we don't know, we just know they're getting it. And the point that I brought up is simply the idea of the supply chain. Somewhere, the supply chain is failing, and it's getting to the kids. By changing these regulations, we alter the supply chain, and hopefully, if additional towns do it and the supply chain gets crippled in that respect, then less kids will get
I
it.
guess I respectfully disagree with that. I
No,
don't.
that's fine.
Yeah, no, and again, we are having a conversation, I hope, and this is nothing personal, but I don't I don't understand how, if kids aren't accessing these products exclusively through stores, the data I have and the data you have are discrepant. Yet we also know that they are getting them through other sources. We know this. I'm not sure how pulling products out of a store disrupts the supply chain when they can get them in many other ways rather easily. I mean, with that one particular comment, I just don't.
It's simply the only thing we have control over. You know, we don't have control over Amazon. We can't, you know, if we did, if this board had control over Amazon or over mail order or over any of that stuff, we'd be taking action against that too. I'm pretty safe. I think that's a pretty safe bet.
But you know, I grew up in the Midwest where you could drink it, and I'm showing my age here, you could drink at 18 in the Midwest. So I drank when I was 15. And how did I drink when I was 15? Because my older brother bought me beer.
Yeah, exactly
Okay,
right.
so how is that not any different than what we're talking about right now then?
You're making, not at all. It isn't any different. You raised the age to the town went to 21.
Right.
You referenced it earlier. And the idea, but by going to 21, is that those 18-year-olds who aren't seniors can no longer go, and then will go back to the school because theoretically a 21-year-old isn't in high school and selling to kids, but an 18-year-old may be. So you raise the age to 21 to create that gap, right?
Okay.
And then you talked about what you're talking about are social sources. And you're right, that is absolutely a problem. I referenced the internet, I think I referenced social sources. That is a major problem. Sorry, I didn't realize that was even on.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was on, although I guess there's a green light there, so silly me. What can you do? I mean, we've talked about purchase, use, and possession laws ad nauseum across the cities and towns in this state. You know, I've heard from, not from you, granted I wasn't here, and this is the first time we're ever speaking to one another. I have heard the statement, if we just save one life, it'll be worth it. I hear that. And, you know, I'm not going to get into whether or not I agree with the logic of it, but who wouldn't want to save a life? Don't get me wrong. But if that is true, then why wouldn't a town introduce purchase, use, and possession laws? It would certainly curtail the social sources. If I am a 21-year-old and I'm looking to make a few bucks by selling to an 18-year-old so he can go and create a little wholesale business in the locker room, and I know I can go to jail or whatever, right? Get fined, go to jail, who knows what it is, right? I'm going to think twice about that. But there is no downside. There's nothing anybody can do to me if I do that now. If that saves one life, why not employ that? Because
it wouldn't work.
Why wouldn't it work?
Because
Why would it work? Why
my
wouldn't
many
it
years
work
of
any
town
better than this?
experience, you can pass all the laws you want, but if you don't have the resource to enforce them, they're worthless.
The MIAA.
So we have a police shortage in this town, now, and I'll let you finish. We have a police shortage right now. I think the town manager would love to have 3 more police officers every shift on the road. We don't have the resources to do that. So do you really think the police officers are going to not respond to a car accident so they can find a kid for carrying vape? It sounds good on paper. In reality, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work.
Does it work for alcohol?
Does it work for alcohol?
Yeah.
No.
Why do you have it?
Well, then you're
No, I'm not asking her.
You're making our point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're
work,
helping
right?
us.
Then why do we have it?
So then why not get rid of it?
Right.
The point is, it's rhetorical. You have it because it's a deterrent. Whether or not you can engage teeth is a matter of a budget, you know, and I guess intent and effort. But it's certainly a deterrent. It is a deterrent. It is a tool. Towns are unwilling to do it. You don't want it. If you want it to be as useless as tobacco, I mean, as
Alcohol.
Thank you. Alcohol. Then it's as useless as alcohol. So what's the harm? The point is that there's a chance of it doing something. Pulling mint, wintergreen, menthol, and tobacco-flavored products, I haven't even gotten to the harm reduction. I'm not an expert on that. I'm not going to get into that. There may be other people. You may have received letters on that. Okay? But taking those products out of stores is something, I guess. But it's going to do anything. And if it's not going to do anything, then really what are you doing? You're harming the retailers in the room. And to the point of your data, because I haven't seen that. And I guess my first question is, how would one get information on that? How would one
Public
find that
reading.
information?
We'd be happy to provide it to you.
But if I hadn't had this conversation, is that available?
Public records request
It is.
through
So,
Mass General Law, yep.
So any town? I'm just asking.
Any town, yeah.
Any town would be able to
Any
provide
town, yeah.
their local,
Mhm.
and Ashland does its own stings?
We don't call them
We don't like to
stings.
call them, we like to call them compliance checks.
Compliance checks.
Right, right.
Comprehensive inspections, compliance checks.
How many have you done in the last year?
Two.
Two. And so, with all due respect, sir, you
You
were
want
just
me to
kind of
keep
poo-pooing the
answering?
one from the FDA. You've done two. I mean, it's not a whole lot more.
It's
So-
January.
And
I
you're
assumed
talking
we
within the
I
last
assumed we were
12
talking
months.
about 2017. I apologize. How about in 2017?
Stick with tonight,
John, let me know if you want me to answer.
stick with tonight.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I can go over the whole chart if you want.
No,
I
but in
just
general,
wanna-
we
no,
do
just a
4 a
minute.
year, though, in general, right?
Well, 2 to 4, it's been averaging 3. We did 3 in 2017, 2 in 2016, and 3 in 2015.
And in all fairness, the poo-pooing of the FDA was 1 in 3 years.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, well, sitting here, I think many people probably were either here or watched the last meeting. I am concurring with what you're saying. I personally don't think eliminating those products are going to solve the problem. I personally liked the task force because I would like to come to 100% compliance, whether it's 1, 2, or 4 compliance checks a year. I think to begin with, we need to start that because clearly we've made a statement, clearly there's an issue here in town, or in other communities, but concentrating on our town.
Yep.
And I hope that by having these meetings and bringing it to attention to our vendors, that they will go back and educate their employees to let them know how serious it is. And maybe having more compliance checks and the ones who have unfortunately violated, and again, just like we said to the last customer, maybe hitting people's pocket will let them know how serious we are. I do believe that we need to do something. I'm personally not ready at this time to make the decision myself, but I think that we could come up with some other more immediate situations to at least try to help the problem.
You guys have been very generous with your time and letting me speak, and I do appreciate, I want to recognize that.
We
It's
appreciate
unusual.
your input.
Mhm.
Thank you, and it's
feedback.
unusual that I'm up at the podium this long. But I would ask, I happen to, I don't every convenience store in this town is not a member of mine. But you do have a number of them that are. And without naming names, I can assure you they are high-quality companies that do their own inspections, that have, if they have any tolerance at all, it is low tolerance. And so I guess my question to you is this approach to get to where you're trying to go, which is where we're all trying to go, which is kids don't use this stuff, right? Are we throwing the baby out with the bathwater to some extent here? I mean, are there bad actors in town, perennial bad actors, that frankly should have their license revoked? And if they're members of mine, I'm on the record saying they should have their licenses revoked too. Because if they're going to take the whole ship down, that's despicable, and they should be fined. So my question to you, and maybe this is a task force question, before we do something, and again, I can't overstate, this is a major thing. For those of you not in the business, this is a big deal. You may not like cigarettes, I don't smoke, I don't want my kids to smoke, but for those people that do, and for those retailers that sell it, this is a major product. Are there more draconian measures that can be taken for those bad actors? I mean, I know somebody in this audience, or last week anyway, had offered to be on the task force. I suppose I would as well, as a representative of the industry. I'm sure you would find no shortage of people that would. And in fact, I think law enforcement, and I think somebody from this board, and tobacco control should be on that as well. We should all be putting our minds together.
Can I just ask you a question, just because you represent the retailers, because I know, and the establishment is here, but last meeting, when it was brought to my attention that you could sell a maximum of 5 electronic cigarettes per day to one customer, I was kind of astonished, because ignorance. That would be a first step for your vendors to take action on that.
So self-policing measure, you mean?
Well, if you're selling 5
Yeah.
e-cigarettes to
Yeah.
one person, clearly it's not for them.
So without naming, right. So
Right?
without,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, so without naming names, there are companies that have done that. And
I'm
yeah.
making a suggestion
Yeah,
that there are
it's-
actions
yeah.
that the retailers could take on their own as well.
and some have, and some
Okay.
have. The better companies have, and the ones that I'm aware of have. Some, not all.
Do they limit? do
yeah,
they limit-
yeah, that's what I mean,
Because
yeah.
clearly,
Yep.
if youths are obtaining these from our vendors, our establishments, clearly people going into the stores and buying more than just one.
It is
Not for just personal use.
It is a company you know. I don't know if they'd appreciate me naming them,
No,
but,
you know.
and there are probably others. And
Yeah.
there were but it's an excellent suggestion. That's the kind of stuff we need to be talking about. Anyway.
I'm just making the assumption that you were probably at the Board of Health meetings in Needham.
Yes.
So, you know, just from your perspective, if you can share with us, when you voiced these, essentially, I'm assuming, same concerns to that Board of Health, what was their response to you?
There were no questions. They voted it through 3-0. I thought it was despicable.
So they didn't respond to any of your questions at all?
Nobody asked a question. I called my Board of Selectmen. I expressed my rage. I said to the Director of Public Health, I said, I hope that you have to go to these retailers, look them in the eyes and say, I know that you, oh, and by the way, since we brought Needham, the director there had written a letter, not 2 months earlier, posted in the Needham Times, congratulating them, waxing poetic about the great job that they've done. 2 months later, well, I guess whenever it's effective, March 1st or July 1st, I said to him, I said, I hope you're going to be able to go there and you look them in the eyes and you say, I know I congratulated you. I know you're at 100% compliance, but I'm going to take that product out of your store anyway. I said, how's that going to go over? He said, it's going to be a difficult conversation. I said, bet your ass it's going to be a difficult, conversation.
Okay.
Sorry, that was probably more than
No.
you, that was probably more than you bargained
No,
for.
I just,
Family show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize.
I just wanted
I
to.
used to run,
Just
we
a
used to,
closing
my business
comment?
used to have trucks,
'Cause,
so
you know,
forgive me.
We just gotta, I appreciate your time.
Yeah, of
It-
course.
It's been a great conversation.
Yeah.
Just a closing comment, and
Likewise.
then I'm gonna set some ground rules then.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
Yeah.
Anything more?
Oh, no, no,
right.
thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Because I know there are people that here want to speak, and the reason why I said anything new, because I thought it was, you put a window of purity for anything new. I will allow further comment on this. I have my Adam Schuster timer here, and I will allow each individual 2 minutes, and I will do it fair, and Diane, you'll be my witness that I'll keep it to 2, but ma'am?
Stress. Amy Turncliffe at Rossi Lane, and I'm speaking as a resident neuroscientist and public health advocate. I did speak last week, so I don't want to take a lot of time reiterating what I've already said, but what I will say is we know that there is a lot of science and public health data that supports these amendments that you have proposed, and I commend you for that. This isn't just about compliance. This is about products that are appealing to youth. So it's not simply, whether or not our stores are compliant. And this is an extension beyond the fruit flavors, the cotton candy, to say that menthol, mint, and wintergreen are also products that are appealing to youth. And we know, because we presented that data, I mentioned that data and sent that off to you, that more than 50% of youth are using menthol, mint, or wintergreen products. So we know that they're appealing to youth. So whether they're getting them directly from the store, which we also know some of them are, or they're getting them through social sources, or what the industry, I think, calls leakage, what we might call diversion, those products are appealing to youth. They increase initiation of not only e-cigarettes, but of traditional tobacco products, I also shared last time. And then menthol increases initiation because it reduces the irritation, the cough, and it makes it harder to quit. So this isn't just about compliance. It is also about taking those products off. The only other thing I would say is working under a public health framework. The standard in public health is that industry does not set their own regulations. So having industry come and work with you, with you on a task force is not a public health standard, because they profit from the industry, and which automatically gives a conflict of interest. Thank you.
Can I just ask Amy a quick question?
Yeah.
We might have covered it last time, and I apologize because I did have a cold. How many, in general, you might have an exact figure, but in general, how many youth would you say in Ashland use electronic cigarettes? Because in general, we've talked, most of the times when we talked, even at the last meeting, it was electronic cigarettes versus combustible products. Is it 100? Is it 1,000?
So the data that has been released by the school district has been posted on their website, and the last time that our students took that survey was in 2016. And they just took it again in November. But it was pretty consistent across the Metro West region, in that I think about 25% of high school students had said they had used in their lifetime. About 15% said that they had used in the past 30 days, which makes them current users. And that was 2 years ago. So, you know, I think...
But you said it's pretty comparable
to the rest of the region.
Amy, can I throw a fact out there to back you up that was brought up last week?
Yeah,
please
That might answer your question? And I added this to the thing. It was from the Department of Health and Human Services report of 2016. And the statement was that e-cigarettes are available in a wide variety of flavors, including many that are especially appealing to youth. More than 85% of e-cigarette users ages 12 to 17 use flavored e-cigarettes. You know, that doesn't address the number of users.
Yeah, I just was looking,
But it
I was
certainly does
looking for
give
an
the
actual.
percentage.
Yeah, So roughly, and I think based on that same data, I think the students actually had described their peers who can't make it through a class period because they need to go and use, because they are nicotine dependent. And I think the students said only 3% of students who were e-cigarette users had reported getting them from the internet. So we know that there's a lot of sharing.
And I know some of this is loaded, but I'm gonna ask it anyhow, because I know we've talked off camera as well, is that we've talked about this before, that even the doctor said that it's such an epidemic, we collectively don't know what to do, how to treat the youth, because it's such a new problem and such a big problem. So, you know, listening to all the conversation at the last meeting, I go, so we're taking away the source, just like we were talking about. So now we're setting people, let's just say it's 200 kids that are currently using, or in 30 days. So now we're taking their source. Are we contributing to that problem? We don't, if the people on the other side of the counter, the doctors, have stood up here and testified, so to speak, that they don't know how to properly treat these youths because of the amount of product that's in these.
So are you suggesting that we leave the product on the shelf so they can continue to use?
Well, even, again, I think last meeting we had a doctor and a pediatrician both speak
Yes,
on the treating the youth.
Yeah,
They
I
don't
think
know how to treat them. And
Yeah.
yes, that is what I'm saying, is so it's such, I just feel like we're rushing into this right now.
Yeah.
We need to figure out the whole plan.
Yeah.
By eliminating the products, how is that going to help them with the recovery?
Right.
We don't know.
So
how
what
to
you
treat
want to
them.
do, and this is why we're taking we're really cracking, me, because I'm not a physician.
Right.
But I think it's multiple strategies in multiple domains. This is one strategy we can do right here, right now.
For the
right?
e-cigarette?
For the e-cigarettes. If you want to look at prescription drugs, right? You don't just leave the prescription drugs out there for the free, as many as they need because they're accessing them. The hope is that, and yes, it
They're
has
limiting
pushed
them,
some
right.
people to heroin. It has, but in the long term, you hope that you can reduce the number of people who become dependent.
Correct.
Over the long
but
term. So-
the doctor was referencing his own practice. He
Yeah.
said that he's limited on what he
Yeah.
can
Yes.
prescribe. He still can prescribe, but
Yeah.
he's limited on what he prescribes.
Right.
They didn't take it away from him. So that's
Right, you're talking about a pain medication
correct. But
as-
we're talking
for
about
people who have had surgery.
Well, but we were saying, he was referencing the fact
was
that
here,
if he writes too many, whether, whatever somebody's ailment may be, whether it's a surgery or something else
Yeah.
going on, that if the people that are standing in front of us, the doctors, are saying they don't know how to treat these kids, I don't know, I don't know
So
that it's solving the
what you
problem.
want to do is decrease the number of young people who are entering into that addiction. So if we don't take the actions that we can, we wind up with more and more and more people downstream. What we want to do is back up and go back upstream. That's primary prevention. And what you're talking about is harm reduction. So that would be tertiary prevention. So you want to go back upstream. You want to reduce, multiple strategies in multiple domains. You want to reduce access and availability, increase perception of harm, increase perception of disapproval.
Well, what else are we doing besides taking them off the shelf?
The school, this is where I think this is a broader conversation as a community.
Yeah.
We talk about multiple strategies in multiple domains. A lot is actually being done within the community of other things. This is something the board can do. The school is working on a diversion program. They are educate youth that they find are with electronic devices. They'll put them into a diversion program. They don't want to suspend them. They don't want to fine them. That these kids have become addicted, unfortunately.
And that is probably valuable information that maybe I haven't received, but what is the school doing for the youth who was?
Well, you'd have to bring, I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but I know that they have developed their own internal program because they don't want to, they were finding, we're having to suspend children, kids repeat.
Yeah.
And that is not helpful. And as I think the students stood up here and spoke about that as well. And so, or someone did. And so they have developed an education program and they meet with a nurse. And so, there are, it's part of this is part of a larger comprehensive approach to reduce the number of nicotine dependent youth in our community.
And maybe we, from my own knowledge, I mean, I would like some information from the school. I know we spoke about, I was going to try to attend one of your meetings and get more information on it. I mean, I would like more information of what the school department is doing as well, because that.
Though I'm not here as a coalition representative.
No, I know, but I mean, just to receive the information, I think it would be valuable information to know what they're doing to help with
They
it.
do have a wellness committee which addresses some of these issues.
But nobody's,
In fact,
we haven't gotten anybody to report to us.
Vice principal wanted to come to the board. I said, that's the best place to come back and publicize what you're
That would
doing.
be great.
So that the public will know about it, as well as the parents will know more about it.
Well, one thing that I was very much impressed by is, unasked, a former principal, former athletic director, and current superintendent of our school sent us, I thought, a very powerful message. So I think we know what the school's take on this is.
Well, to that point, John, and earlier you asked if there was any new stuff, right? Before the meeting started, Laura handed me a sheet of paper the day after our last meeting, and I'd like to think that maybe it influenced it a little bit, but there's been a lot of action. Senator John Keenan on the 16th filed legislation to make the ban law. Now, how long that will take to process, but it's a statement. It's certainly a statement to the effect, and to your point, Diane, to the question you just asked, which carries over from the gentleman that spoke a few moments ago on the retailer's end. If we look at this and say, this action maybe will have a very small immediate effect, that's maybe a fair statement to make. It may be, right? But if nobody takes any action, nothing happens. It's one small action that has a ripple effect with other small actions that come together to maybe get the desired result. That's the hope. As Amy, I think, very eloquently put it, it's one phase of a very big thing. When a doctor tells me we don't know how to treat these kids, the way I look at it is, then why give them more kids to treat? Let's limit the number of kids they're trying to figure out how to fix so that they can come up with a solution.
Yeah, and I guess
It
this
only
is why
gets
it's
harder.
a five-member
You know what
board,
I'm
because we
saying?
can
It's the
agree to
same thing.
disagree,
Yeah.
right?
No,
Because I think of how, and again, I don't smoke, I
Yeah.
used to, and I
Yeah.
loved it. If somebody told me it
Uh-huh.
was good for me, I'd probably smoke again. But I think we all know it's bad. But there's also, again, I don't have a figure, because I don't know how many kids are in the school, so I don't
Yeah.
know what 15% represents. But what about the people who are 21 and older and have a right to go to the store and buy it? What, we protect everybody.
There will still be product on the shelves, right? And if you decide to keep I don't know whether you will or won't decide to keep tobacco e-cigarettes, but there will then be those on the shelves. So it's not as if you have no product.
I mentioned it.
I love dialogue, I love conversation, but I also want to respect people's time. We did say, thank you, Amy, thank you very much. What I suggest is we give everybody their 2 minutes,
Yep.
and then we have this conversation.
perfect.
Because then it uses everybody's time more effectively. Mr. DeSoni, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Sony. It's from last time, but it's gonna be new at the end. Before the stores have their content, they gotta come in to the planning board to get sites and get their zone license and everything else going. Without that, they can't have a store. So it's product by product by product, comes in after the built-up store. Policies, I said last time, policies are no good because if it happens personally to a family member, policies won't fit to them. And to the John, and the representatives, they don't they have a dog in the race, but then again, their dog's not in their own doghouse. I don't smoke, never have, never will. Have a family member that succumbed to these smoking diseases, and what disease and emphysema and all that stuff came to. That was my mom. So every time I hear smoking, I kind of cringe. 2 minutes,
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Tonto put out smoke signals. He never got cancer.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening.
Hi. I'm Joseph Gayed. I own Ashland Convenience Store, 72 Union Street, and I opened that store 1989. So I'm in business 30 years in that location. And before that, actually, I owned a convenience store in Cambridge. That was 1984. With my experience with convenience stores, I gonna follow up with what John said. And I'd like actually to start what Diane said. We protect everybody. I like that. I mean, that's a Board of Health of Ashland, and I think Board of Health, he should protect everybody. Not only children and not only the senior or adult. I think we're here for everybody. And I was not planning to say that, but I was a little bit disappointed last meeting when I see a lot of people attack convenience store and convenience store owners. And I do remember one of the doctors, he said that. He said he doesn't care about adult, he doesn't care about convenience stores or convenience stores owner, he only care about children. And I was hoping he was here tonight at 7 o'clock, and I was happy I came at 7 o'clock earlier to listen to the conversation with the lady who was here with the rest home. And that was an example for Ashland Board of Health, care about everybody, care about kids and adult and senior citizen. So I wish he was here today so he can be at 7 o'clock and listen to this. So I want to start my talking on as a convenience store owner. And I'm going to say with this product is going to be banned in our stores, we're going to lose between 20 to 30% sales of the tobacco. The tobacco product is a big percentage of our sales at the convenience store, especially now. Not because the tobacco product raised on sales. Actually, I sell less tobacco than 5 or 10 or 15 years ago. I can say numbers. I mean, I used to sell 250 250 cartons of cigarette a week in my store. That probably like maybe 15, 20 years ago when the cigarettes were $3 a pack. Yes. And I mean, right now, I'm not even close to maybe 50, 60 cartons a week. I mean, some business went to the e-cigarettes. We all know that. But like I said, the tobacco is a still big portion and big percentage of any convenience stores. Not because the tobacco raised, but because other products actually we sell less. Similar, I mean, we don't sell milk like we used to. We don't sell newspaper anymore. Everybody open the internet now. I mean, we used to sell a lot of stuff, and by the many competitions, all the gas stations turned to be a convenience store instead of service gas stations, so you can buy milk anywhere now. So our actually sales went down years after years, and the tobacco now is a big percentage. I can talk numbers because I think last week some of the board member asked about some numbers. If we lose 20 to 30% of our tobacco, how this would translate to numbers, and this is not going to be any of hundreds of dollars loss. We talk about thousands of dollars, and that's a year. So if we lose 20 to 30% of our sales for a convenience store, it's going to be thousands of dollars to us. And the way I look at it myself, if I lose that sales in my convenience store, I'm not gonna only lose that 20 to 30% tobacco. I'm gonna lose other sales with it because people actually come and buy a pack of cigarette and buy other stuff for it. So my sales will be affected not only from the 20 to 30% from other products like candy or, you know, grocery or milk or other product. That person actually will gonna buy it too. The way I look at it too, as a store owner, my store value will actually decrease. If my sales went down, that's mean my store value went down. If I ever want to sell it, I will never get, you know, what I'm supposed to get for it if my sales is down. So this is that's just for the convenience store. I mean, as a convenience store owner, I just look at that stuff.
30 seconds, Joseph. Sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
as a father and raised 3 kids, and they were all in the high school, they were actually in Ashland High School. I'm still believe, and I was here before, last meeting when we banned actually the flavor, the strawberry and all this kind of stuff. And I said, I think the way I look at it is education. And I did try this with my kids, and it works. I mean, I was after my kids home, and I think the school has part of this too. So if we are after our kids between the home and the school, educate them very well, we'll have a healthy generation. That's my opinion. I don't think banning the product is gonna do anything, especially from the convenience store, because as we see last week, one actually of the convenience store owners, he bought the product online for $9 and a change, and was available with him without asking for any age or anything. And like I said, as a father, I'm gonna say again, I see already the kids get the product from different sources, as long as it's available. And I wanna say something too about those marijuana stores open in Massachusetts. And that was over the news anyway. The 2 stores, when they first opened, they did $2.2 million sales in first 5 days. And there's no way that $2.2 million came from those 2 towns. I'm sure as many towns went to those 2 stores and bought it. And I mean, I don't know how many high schools have this product right now, okay, with that $2.2 million in 5 days. If there's some product that transferred to the high school kids, I'm sure some did. So banning the product from Ashland stores, I don't think this is gonna serve the purpose of protecting the kids on the high schools. So,
Joe, can I ask him a quick question
Please.
on numbers?
Yep.
And you don't have to answer this if you want.
Okay.
On
No,
a-
that's
on a-
fine.
On a single pack of cigarettes that you may
Yes.
sell for, say, approximately $10,
yes,
how much of that is profit?
$1,
$1.
$1, yeah. Okay,
All right, Joseph, thank you.
thank you very much.
Very well stated. Thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
I just gave him a lot more.
We have on the
Good evening.
Good evening. I really didn't want to do this, but I just have to respond to some things a previous speaker said. First of all, the issue, I'm not the physician who said he doesn't care about store owners, but we have an unfortunate truth here. We have marketing and exposure to these products in stores that we know kids frequent more than adults. That's the issue. It's the marketing of these products in these stores. In response to Needham, Needham held a public hearing. Ashland is holding a public discussion. There's a difference in the way those 2 procedures work for boards of health, as you well know. In a hearing, the board receives testimony and then reviews the testimony and discusses it amongst themselves. In a public discussion, you could have dialogue. What the Needham Board of Health did was they held a public hearing one evening, and then they took all of the peer-reviewed science-based evidence that they received, and they reviewed it until the next meeting, which was at 7 o'clock in the morning. And at that meeting, they reopened the public hearing and took additional testimony. And my understanding is the police chief actually testified as to the ineffectiveness of PUP laws when it came to tobacco, and he looked at the recently amended Criminal Reform Act. For alcohol, there is a state law that prohibits kids from possessing alcohol. There is not the same state law for tobacco. And when we look at social sources and the internet, an assistant AG was here at the last hearing who testified as to all the different strategies that they're using to address the internet issue. Thanks.
Thank you. And just for the record, we were at that public hearing as well, too. Yeah, so. Good evening.
Good evening, members of the board. As you may recall, my name is Adam Ponte. I'm an attorney with the law firm Fletcher Tilton. And I just want to recognize this board for having me. This is the 4th time I'm here tonight. I'm not going to get into it again. I think we all understand the points that I've raised the last 3 meetings. And I just wanted to raise to your attention just a few points before you decide whether or not you're going to vote. And as you know, I represent the Coalition for Responsible Retailers, just for the purpose of the record. For those of you in the audience that don't know, my job is to represent the retail owners like those here in the town of Ashland and throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And I hope that tonight, frankly, isn't the last time that I get to present to this board. I think we've had rational, logical dialogue over the last 3 months. I've been given the opportunity to submit multiple letters to Director Orem over the last 2 to 3 months, and I do believe that this board has reviewed those materials and taken, careful consideration of the points that I've raised in those materials. And what I just wanted to say tonight was, it's wonderful to hear that you have at least one board member who's taking serious the notion of a task force, that you've heard at the last public meeting. Multiple store owners here in town have engaged in significantly effective measures in their stores to prevent sales to minors in your town. And just what I wanted to raise as well under that prong of a task force is we're starting to talk about the things that I think will matter in this town. Limiting the number of sales of e-cigarette products, maybe to 1. Restricting the types of marketing, allowing marketing, but perhaps a rational measure would be questioning the reason why you have it 3 to 4 feet off the ground. And what's actually not being discussed, and I think I want to raise now, is we've all been talking about e-cigarettes and non-combustibles being an epidemic with the kids. But what about the combustibles and the smokeless tobacco products that come in the mint, menthol, and wintergreen varieties? The kids aren't using those. No one's talking about that. Yet we're talking about taking those off the shelves as well, taking it away from legal adult purchasers, those who need other methods to get away from the combustibles, like the smokeless products, mint, menthol, and wintergreen variety. And with that all being said, I really want to give this board the confidence not to vote on the prohibition of mint, menthol, wintergreen products in your town. And it's my understanding you're also considering a prohibition on the sale of tobacco-flavored e-cigarette products. I stated this last time, and I'll leave you with this. We know that the combustible products are significantly more harmful than the non-combustibles. This ban will leave only the combustibles on the shelves. That is sending a message that we're asking those who are addicted to the products, when they go into the store, they're left with that one choice, the more harmful product. And so I respectfully request that this board consider not voting tonight, and that you engage in talking with all of the stakeholders, the proponents of the prohibition, maybe 1 or 2 members from your board, some of your retailers here in town. Talk with them. Tell them we're going to have a zero tolerance policy in Ashland. You violate and you sell to someone who's under 21 one time, that's it. It's over. License is gone. Tell them that. Increase the fine. Let's talk about specific measures that you can discuss with your store owners in town. So again, I appreciate all the time you've given me, and I hope that this isn't the last time in front of this board. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, last call for 2-minute comment. Seeing none, we will close the conversation and discuss it amongst the board.
So if I may?
Please.
I think before we get into an overly long and elaborate, we all went home very late last week, and hopefully we can make it a little bit earlier tonight. But the one thing, the draft of the regulations that we talked about and ad nauseum and that we presented and gave out, I did, based on last meeting, make a few edits to. But they're moot if we decide that we're not going to take a vote tonight. So I would think that it might make more sense to first decide if we're going to take action. I'll preface it by saying that if we do take a vote on whether or not to accept this regulation change, one of the things that has been changed is adding the tobacco flavor back into the characterizing flavor definition, what I'll propose. So if we decide, it seems to make sense first to decide if we're going to vote. If we do, then maybe we can talk about the changes I've proposed and then vote on the changes and then vote on the thing as amended.
If we do vote, I do have a question for council, but I think you bring up a good point. Does the board feel that they want to at least make a motion and, you know,
I will make the motion that I think we should vote on regulation tonight.
is there a second?
No,
You wanted to say
no,
something?
that's fine. I just wanted to, even before we started everything, is to clarify so that everybody has a clear understanding, including everybody
Mhm.
out there, exactly what we were voting on. I think
Right.
that I have
In
it
the
down
next
here, and
discussion,
that,
yeah.
and that,
Mhm.
right, and
Mhm.
after we know exactly what it
Mhm.
is, if we all don't feel comfortable, that's fine,
Right,
but,
yeah, we can
I
just
can-
shoot it down.
Right.
you know,
Right, we can just shoot it
I
down.
wouldn't disagree with
But you
what
at
you
least
just
wanna-
said.
So he has a motion, and did one of you second?
Second.
So further discussion on taking a vote.
I would prefer to wait to take a vote and have more discussion. I mean, for myself, I
Okay.
want to get more information.
Okay.
I got a lot of valuable information last week. I've done some research since then. It's only been a week. So I would prefer, and I did ask that last week, is if we
Sure.
did not discuss it tonight and give us at least a couple weeks to, we got a lot of information emailed to us, and I did not spend all weekend reading it, and I, right, so, I mean, if you call a vote,
Yeah.
call a vote.
I do think you'll like some of the amendments that I've made, but again,
Yeah,
I
Well,
respect.
well, I would, I
I
mean, like I
respect your
spoke
opinions.
to Amy, I mean, well, obviously, Amy spoke, but I would like, I mean, I would really like to get some clarification about what the school is doing, from my own perspective.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to at least have the opportunity to vote tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
No abstentions? All right, so why don't we go through
wanna go
your
through specific
revisions
one?
first?
Okay.
Because
So there-
I have a concern
Is
or
this-
three.
In your packets, you have yellow
This is-
lines.
Does
It
Does
should be
everybody have a
separate
copy or
handout.
want a copy?
This is
Anybody in
not-
the
I'll go
audience?
through, there's really very small numbers, so
Okay.
I'll read them all out loud.
Just want
You
to
say there is
make sure
yellow
that the
highlighter?
public has it
Yeah,
if they
sure.
want it.
Hold on.
It should be a handout that we put out.
It might be mixed in with Kathy's stuff.
Is there a new one?
It's probably loose and stapled.
Do I have it?
No
I had,
pond.
No,
she made copies earlier tonight.
I have this one. Where it has no yellow.
This is what it looks like right here.
I don't have a yellow line.
Just
right.
4 pages.
I can look at
I don't
that.
have a yellow
I
line.
won't write on
Okay.
it, I promise.
I can just mark it. I
You
can
said he
mark
has
it.
one that has highlighted yellow.
I don't think I got it.
Have that one.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
But I'll just mark it, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I can mark it.
We'll
as I
just-
go.
Just reference the page if you want.
So I'm going to start with the one on page 2. There are 2 of them on page 2. The first one is an addition to the statement of purpose, adding the statement that I read earlier tonight, because I thought it was very prolific to the cause that was read, and it's the statement that reads, whereas e-cigarettes are available in a wide variety of flavors, including many that are especially appealing to youth.
Sorry, I don't have the same document. I apologize. My page 2 is not the same page
Yeah, I
2.
don't have
Right, because
I can do
this
it. You
is,
want me to go run
this
some-
is the only thing
I'll
that's
run some
amended.
copies.
This is,
I don't have that on page 2.
yeah, it won't be on your page 2.
Well,
Okay.
It'll be in the-
it's further on in the packet.
It's an additional.
Let's just,
Today's packet.
why don't we just take a
It's the only thing that's an
2-minute
additional.
breather while Laura makes,
Okay.
because I want to make
She'll
sure
make a few more
everybody.
copies.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Thank
that's
you.
inserted in between
Nancy's
there.
here
Yeah,
to open the
that's,
No, I know.
everything else is just
All right,
editing.
Miles, why don't we take a 2-minute break while we make copies?
Is that it? Are these
All right, we're gonna reopen the January 22nd Board of Health meeting. Is currently, what time is it? 8:56. We're reopening. We're talking about our tobacco regulations. And meeting's back in order. So Chris, go ahead, page
Okay.
2.
So the handouts that you all just got that are looking at it, you're only looking at 4 pages that match the pages in the full regulation. I just didn't want to, there were no changes on any of the other pages, so I didn't see it fit to waste paper. So looking at page 2, the first yellow paragraph is simply an addition, a statement that's made in addition to the statement of purpose. Whereas e-cigarettes are available in a wide variety of flavors, including many that are especially appealing to youth. More than 85% of e-cigarette users ages 12 to 17 use flavored e-cigarettes, and flavors are the leading reason for youth use. More than 9 of 10 young adult e-cigarette users said they use e-cigarettes flavored to taste like menthol, alcohol, fruit, chocolate, or other sweets. And of course, with the addition of that, there is a citation that goes along with it. And as I mentioned earlier, that comes from a 2016 report of the Department of Public Health. Further down on page 2, the definition of characterizing flavor, and just for argument's sake, I'll read the entire thing. The only change is that I added back the taste of or aroma of tobacco. So characterizing flavor, the definition would read, a distinguishable taste or aroma other than the taste or aroma of tobacco, imparted or detectable either prior to or during consumption of a tobacco product or component part thereof, including but not limited to tastes or aromas relating to any fruit, chocolate, vanilla, honey, candy, cocoa, dessert, I'm getting hungry, alcoholic beverage, herb or spice, provided, however, that no tobacco product shall be determined to have a characterizing flavor solely because of the provision of ingredient information or the use of additives or flavorings that do not contribute to the distinguishable taste or aroma of the product. The next edit is on page 10. And up in section 2, ABC, in the original draft, we had removed the dollar amounts of fines and talked about just the wording we used was something like maximum amount allowed by law or maximum penalty allowed by law. I've taken that wording out, gone back and put dollar amounts, but I put the accurate dollar amounts of $300 for the fines in for each of those violations. And then the only other,
I was gonna say, can I just comment on the
Yeah,
fine,
sure.
just because I know Mark and I looked into this?
yeah,
Do you want to explain it, Mark, or do you want me to?
Well, this looks appropriate, the
Right,
300.
remember we talked about the fines at the last meeting and the way that it was approved at town meeting?
Yeah, there
Is it just
seems to be
references the
confusion.
section because we have all the fines in one section?
Mhm.
So if you look in our current
Oh, I see.
tobacco regulations, it doesn't reference the
Right.
appropriate fines, it's
Mhm.
because it's in a total another section.
Mhm.
So, again, just bringing it up because I specifically, Mike, I think we should have the violations in here,
mhm.
but we reference the fines in a different section of our town code book for all of our violations for non-criminal disposition.
So would your suggestion be to
Go
include?
back, to maybe go back to what you originally had, is just referencing that section.
Either way, I don't see an issue, and I'm sorry if I didn't disclose that to you, Diane, but I think having it in the regulation and also in the town bylaws would help the reader
Yeah,
understand.
just to,
You can put a
to,
liner there.
I'm just
referencing
clarifying, because the
bylaw.
last
Yeah.
meeting, there was some confusion about
No,
what
I understand.
violations, and that's
Yeah.
why it was
Right.
not, is because if somebody went in another
We gotta
section.
get that
if it
resolved.
helps any,
can
my
add the
research for the
reference, yeah.
wording, aside from the dollar amounts, I've looked at probably 30 different towns' regulations, and they're all worded like this, where the numbers are in there.
Yeah, no, I'm not questioning the word.
In the bylaw right now, that should be switched out for this at the time that the board so approves it if they wish to. That's all I'm saying, just switch it out so the old one goes out, the new one goes in.
Okay.
And it'll be
I
in
mean-
2 places, and you're correct, non-criminal violations do have to be approved at the town meeting as a bylaw.
And they
That is
were.
correct.
Yep, and they were.
So now, the only other talking point here is, that's highlighted in yellow, is the effective date of this regulation. And the reason I didn't write anything in there is because all I have is a personal recommendation based on the testimony that I've heard over the last 2 meetings. And I'll discuss I'll use my time to discuss that, and then we can, you know, expand this in terms of how you wanna, how we wanna work this out. When we met a while back, when we were first kind of roughing this out before the public hearing, one of the suggestions, as we have here, was within 45 days of action, which would mean if we decided to vote on this regulation, it would become effective 45 days from now. In looking at the towns that have passed this, we were looking at July 1st was one, and what was another one, was May or April, something like that. After listening to the testimony of everybody, including our retailers, I think, and I think partly something that my sensitivity to Diane, to your specific concerns. I'm gonna recommend that we do vote on this, but that the one thing we do is look at a longer effective date. After all of the different numbers that have come through my head and reading ad nauseum, I really never thought in my life I'd read this much about tobacco and regulations and stuff. But I'm going to suggest that the effective date be January 1, 2020, and I'll explain why. Two reasons, but 2 or 3 reasons. One, I think it gives ample time to the retail community to sell off any product that's on their shelves in fairness to their inventory situation. I think it gives ample time to the retailers to show good faith in that there's time to look at other retail strategies to make up the loss in profits. I think the revelation today, in terms of the numbers of the one retailer who offered numbers, I think that it's a very fair amount of time. Probably most people that believe that we should enact this think it's too much time. But I think it's a fair amount of time. But I think that one of the things it does also for everybody is it gives us an opportunity to see where legislation goes, to see how the other towns that have enacted these rules and regulations go, and gives us an additional chance to create a task force if we decide that's something we want to do during that period of time. And over the course of the next year, if those discussions have influenced the board as a whole and the people that we serve in such a dramatic way, we reopen the discussion before it gets enacted, and we take additional action. So that's my personal recommendation.
That's a good idea. So you have
That
enough
was
time
short and
for-
sweet. That was short and sweet.
Yeah, really. It's a lot to think about right there. Any comment? Because I do have a couple questions for council.
Yeah, I just wanted to, well, not specifically on that, I'd like to think about that for a while. It's definitely, it certainly is
If I
a
could
lengthy
add one-
period of time.
The one period,
But-
the one point that I did
Yeah.
miss that I wanted to make, January of 2020 gives us, those of us in the community, whether it be on the board, decisions at every turn, there's a great marketing opportunity there, right? To use 2020, the vision of the future, the vision of tobacco, the vision of regulation, the vision of our youth. You know, there's something about 2020, I think, that's very appealing as well, from an educational perspective, and we can bank on that, so.
I just want to say to me, I mean, I like the date, because I think that it's coming down the pike, whether we do it, the legislators do it. Clearly, there's a lot of activity around it. There's a lot of activity around it, which is a good thing.
I just wanted to clarify then, with these changes, exactly what a yes vote or a no, I know what a no vote means. What would a yes vote exactly mean? That we're,
A yes vote means
Right.
that
I
this
just wanna
becomes
make sure
under
that-
tobacco regulations on January 1st, 2020.
right, now, so it's gonna be all flavors except for tobacco in a combustible, and all e-cigarettes, or including just a regular nicotine dispensing e-cigarette without any flavor associated with it?
You just scrambled my mind completely.
Because,
Well, you asked the question that I wanted to ask.
okay, so,
About the tobacco.
because that,
So
to me, at least.
The definition of characterizing flavor applies to every product, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct.
So that applies to combustibles and e-cigarettes.
Right, but I'm saying if there's, and I don't know that this exists, do e-cigarettes exist solely with nicotine in them but without a distinguishable flavor? Or does that not exist? So for the argument
any of the
of what
retailers
you're
have a-
saying with people that are trying to get off of this as a conduit, and what the retailers are saying, then that may not be an appealing thing for youth if there's no significant distinguishable flavor, to that.
And maybe somebody else could comment. I mean, I know that my mother uses an electronic cigarette that is, I'll call it tobacco flavor. There's no mint, mango, there's nothing to, so I don't know.
So it's tobacco flavor.
I'm
Right.
assuming it
And-
would be considered banned from the new regulations because it's tobacco flavor, right? I guess it's tobacco flavor.
And I'm not an expert on this.
Right.
I know only from personal experiences of people in my personal, circle. I don't know if they still exist, I assume they do. But the original smoking cessation products that were developed as electronic cigarettes were in fact tobacco flavored. And
Right.
the concept behind some of them, at least, was very similar to the idea of a patch or the idea of a thing, where you're not getting the smoke and all this other stuff, you're still getting the nicotine, and you're reducing it over time.
So currently in these regulations, you're suggesting we eliminate that as well?
No, I changed that. We added.
Right,
we
so
added
that's
that
what I'm
last
saying.
recommendation, we added back tobacco.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
So
so
that-
for combustible and
If you look at the
E.
original draft, we removed
Right,
the,
okay.
Okay.
the exception for tobacco, we added that back in.
Cheryl, could you pull up a chair, because I think the devil's in the details?
But I think some people may object to me pulling up a
Right,
chair,
right.
because I don't represent
Okay.
the municipality. But if you have questions, I'm sure Attorney Conti or myself will be happy to help you answer them. But you're spot on, you add back
Right.
distinguishing flavors other than tobacco, then you can have a tobacco flavored electronic
E-cigarette, okay.
And what about 21 and over clubs?
21 and over what?
What if somebody just wanted to open up a smoke shop in Ashland?
An adult-only retail
Adult-only,
store?
retail-only tobacco?
What is the question? What if they wanted to do that?
Could they do,
absolutely.
could they do any and all?
Assuming you're not at your cap,
We're at a cap, so they would have to be a present vendor that wishes to
Right.
change over to a
you're
storefront
at the
that's
cap
adult
of
only.
the number of permits.
And we are at our cap, yeah.
But I think we talked about this briefly as well, as if an establishment wanted to make a section of their store for the tobacco products. I don't know if that's,
It would have to be an adult, it would have to meet the definition of an adult-only retail tobacco store. But there's no reason why a retailer couldn't, change to that business plan if they wanted to. But if they did, then they would have to be adult-only, and would not allow anyone under the age of 21 to enter.
And would that be a home rule decision if a 21 and over tobacco-only store could sell Slurpees and ice cream?
No, the definition says that the sale of anything else has to be incidental to the sale of tobacco. Now, the
It's
new
fun to get it
food
done.
code that was enacted in October, now does not require a food service permit for an establishment that just wants to sell prepackaged, non-refrigerated products, like Twinkies and Coke, for example. No longer is that required by the state to have a food service permit, but the town can enact stricter regulations if they want to. So you could have an establishment that would be selling, just using the food code, that might be selling prepackaged food as long as it's just incidental to the sale of
what do we have
tobacco.
for adult only.
Thank you.
So you can't have a
What do we have for
convenience
adult only
store,
still?
and then,
We don't
they
have it in ours, do we?
add, you know, a separate
I think
even
two
part
of
of
the
that,
standard
so
definitions.
it's kind of off the table.
You would have to switch over
To that.
adult-only retail establishments.
Okay.
Cheryl, if I may, what if they were in a strip mall and they wanted to put a store next to them, give up their tobacco permit to themselves to open up a retail tobacco adult-only store next to them? That's their own entrance and so forth. Could they do that?
They would have to have their own separate tobacco sales permit.
Because they all use the same.
So someone that,
You'd have to come back to us, and then we'd have to reissue.
sounds that way.
Yeah.
So someone that has one right now just can't decide to move to another location and open up an adult,
If
And
they-
close the current location?
and close the tobacco sales in the current
They
location.
can't transfer their own license. They would have to come back to us to reissue.
Correct.
Right.
If they're using two separate
Okay.
locations, they could put the remaining stuff there and keep the tobacco here, and make that 21. Rather
So-
than,
After the Board of Health's review?
no, if they move it to some other place, no, that's a problem. But if they can take off everything other than tobacco from their shelf, then they can call that as 21. And then move
So
the
say,
other products to
say
another
I'm,
thing and call it
Mark
a different
Oram
thing.
decides I have my own convenience store selling tobacco. I want to take the tobacco out and open up an adult tobacco store. I own the permit. Does that, John, and I feel John might be right, do they need to come in front of the board first before an
And again,
address
I
change?
would defer to your
Okay.
town council on
Okay.
this, but my understanding is that they would need to come back because it would be a permit issue to a different location.
Be no difference if they
Okay,
move.
yeah, just, okay, that makes sense then.
But if we don't, I was
Go
gonna say,
ahead,
if we
no.
don't have a cap on ours now, it wouldn't actually be, it would just be a regular application for a tobacco license.
If we didn't have the cap, yeah.
But we do
but
have
we
a cap.
but we
Right,
do,
but,
yeah.
right, but if somebody gave one up and there is, there's one available, they could just come in and apply, they don't have to come in front of us to open up an adult.
Right.
But we decided
Yeah,
to
if
keep
one-
going down.
They
Right.
still have to go to.
Well, we,
We
We
voted on
decided,
it.
yeah, we
well,
voted
we
on it.
haven't, yeah, but
We did.
No, we did,
Right.
we did.
Yeah, but
well, right.
If somebody relinquishes
if-
one,
yeah,
we have the right to
We
take the,
revoke or somebody relinquishes,
Right.
then it's gone.
right.
it'd be wise not to
That
relinquish.
permit is
And that's why when the mobile station, we're like, don't relinquish it, because, we'll take it away and it won't be available, so, yeah.
But that's part of this, correct?
Yeah, they have
That's-
60 days to do the
That's
transfer.
part of this, so that's what I'm saying, is
Yeah.
we haven't voted yet, we haven't done this yet,
Right.
so we have not effectively done that yet.
That's correct.
I have a couple things, and first I want to thank you for all the time and effort. No matter how this comes out, the town of Ashland owes you, a huge thank you for the amount of time that you spent on this. One thing that I will respectfully disagree with, I think this is January 1st. In the spirit of what you're trying to accomplish, I love it. And the reality is that today is January 22nd. If by July 1st you can't sell down your inventory, well, then I think that might be a problem in itself. I like a 6-month window, and I like the 2020 focus from like a marketing standpoint. My only recommendation would be, I think it's too long. But the other thing, regardless of where we come down and where we vote on it, when marijuana first originally came up and we had some opportunities on the Board of Health from before, I had mentioned I always thought we needed a marijuana task force. And I still think today we need a marijuana task force. But I also think now that we need a marijuana, tobacco, juuling, vaping task force, because even if we restrict this, and the motivation is to keep it out of the hands of the youth, the retailers already have said, well, the youth are still going to get it. By banning this, hypothetically, if we ban this today, we don't solve the problem. I think Amy said it so eloquently, is this is one phase of it. And I don't want the public to say, okay, well, the Ashland Board of Health banned it, problem solved. That would be naive and egregious of us if we did that. So I think if nothing else, though, we need to add language in here of establishing a task force if we ban it or if we don't ban it as well, because I just think we're naive if we think we've solved the entire problem tonight if we do vote to ban it.
John.
And that's my only.
John,
Yeah.
that need not be in the regulation, you can act separately. that need not be in the regulation?
Me personally, I just feel it's stronger if it's part of the regulation, but that's just me.
It ties in that every
It
year
does.
that that's why, but it's still, you can enact it outside that.
You're absolutely right, yep. But if it's part of a historic town bylaw, I think it's more effective, that's all. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying. It's just my 2 opinions on it, but. And then there was a hush over the crowd.
I'm trying to
Go
write
ahead,
a
Ron,
motion.
what do you got?
No, I was, thinking about what you said. If you think about what you said about the task force and at least, I know Diane's reservations, then if we're gonna add that back in and we feel like a task force is something that we wanna look at for all of this, then I might agree with Diane and say, well, what's the rush unless we try to, get a task force together soon, if the task force is actually gonna do anything, or if we just feel like it's time to act because we think it's the right thing to do, or it's not the right thing to do. We've
See,
done
I
a
don't
lot of
think a
talking
task
about it,
force
but do you?
accomplishes
Right.
what we're trying to accomplish here tonight.
Right.
I think it's a value-added piece of it, but I don't remember exactly what Amy's quote was, but I agreed with it, and I shook my head when she said it,
Yeah.
is that, a task force, the industry wants a task force because it'll still allow the sales.
Correct.
Me personally, I don't want to allow the sales, but I do think that a task force does add value to it as well, because if a kid is addicted to it, to Diane's point earlier this evening, what do we do? How do we direct them? Do we direct them into therapy? Do we direct them, there were some articles over the weekend that there's prescription programs now for
So
kids that are being addicted as well.
The scope of the task force is to try to elevate other avenues of accessing the tobacco. That's what you're trying to do, other than this.
Yes,
Okay.
and education. I mean, in a board whose goal this year is to be a more proactive and effective in the community type, we can
So the
we can make a
task-
law today, but
Task force is not acting on this regulation. It's
No,
acting
it's-
on
it's
something
value
else
adding.
to supplement
right.
other avenues to
Right,
stop it and
right,
curb
that's all.
the youth.
With what is here, the only thing that I'm in disagreement with is the January 1st deadline. I'm just proposing a July 1st deadline.
Well, and I've gotten a lot of valuable information, and like I said, I'm still reading a lot of information that we received. I don't have an issue if the board decided to call a vote, and I did not feel comfortable voting. I feel comfortable with what I'm doing, but I also don't think if we're talking about even a July 1st date, what are we rushing it for? What are we rushing a vote for tonight? Because, I'm not ready to vote to pass these, but that doesn't mean after reading all the research and getting my own, feeling comfortable with the decision. And again, you don't have to. If the board, everybody feels comfortable doing it, so be it.
It would be nice if everybody felt like they had all the information they
And
needed.
maybe I will feel more comfortable, maybe I won't, but I just
Right.
think that we should have I should have the opportunity, and I think it would be respectful that if the board didn't call a vote and allow, maybe other people have more time in their hands, but we got a lot of information, which I totally appreciate,
Right.
because it's a learning curve for me.
Right.
I'm the newest member on the board,
Right.
but that's just, I think it's
But- with information, because I'm sure that none of us have read as much as that gentleman right there, but if you look at the sources of information that we got, and you look at what institutions were on both sides, really of the argument, the pros and the cons, at least from a medical standpoint, it seems pretty clear to me,
right.
that smoking is, it's a danger, it's a public health issue. But there's more issues here than that. There's
Absolutely.
the livelihood of these businesses, which, may not be in conjunction with, with the actual, the health of the town. Because almost every single store owner stood up here last week and said, we know it's not good for you and we're not condoning smoking.
But it's
And
their
I-
right.
But I don't want to be, I don't want to necessarily be a big brother and tell people what they can and can't do. Then we'd probably be outside every supermarket, saying, well, you shouldn't be buying this and you shouldn't be buying that. because those are big health issues as well, diabetes, heart disease. It comes from a lot of different avenues. The biggest thing that I have, goes back to exactly what John said, and there's always going to be collateral damage, and I respect that, meaning we're going to be potentially taking away, if we vote yes on this, for people that are legally of age to be allowed to obtain these products and use these products in the privacy of their own home or wherever they feel like they want to do it. Except that the people that we're trying to protect are really difficult to protect against a tobacco industry that has billions of dollars to spend to get the next generation hooked. And that's to me at least what I go back to, because I can't think about, I respect, businesses and things like that, but also if you think about what the gentleman who came up here and just said, he's selling 50 cartons a week. So I tried to do the math. So that's 50 packs or 500 packs now at $10 a pack. That's $5,000. Yet he said he's making $1 out of that. So that's down to 1,000.
No, 500.
Right?
I did the math at 60 cartons a week and 600 packs a week total. When you take the 30, and I went with the 30% figure of it being the flavors,
right,
it comes out to $180 a week in profit.
So $180, right.
I mean, I worked here when they eliminated smoking from restaurants. I mean, I think the establishments will recover a lot easier. I don't think I probably once had mentioned, the businesses will recover. Because people will buy, if people go to a store to buy a product, they're gonna go to a store to buy a product, whether it's cigarettes or milk or whatever they're buying. The Ashland Convenience has multiple products that they sell there. I would hope that they could regenerate their revenue that they're losing.
Right.
Whether it's a partial ban or eliminating of one product, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But.
Right, and I spoke, my best friend, decided, 15 years ago, he said, I can't stand what I do, I'm gonna, try to make this catering convenience store work. And I called him up and I talked with him for a while. And I really wanted his opinion as a small business owner. He said, look, not that I'm in favor of smoking, and his mom now walks around with an oxygen tank because she smoked. But interesting enough, he told me the same thing that you told me. He said that no matter how much damage this did to his mother, that his mother he doesn't think his mother would want a ban on the sale of those flavors, which I was astonished at. And he also told me, he said, you know what, I didn't have a license, but if I did, knowing how small the margins are, because he couldn't make it work, at least for him, with his family, that he would have sold them if he could. Yet I talked to my mom and my dad and other relatives that are smokers, and they said, if there's anything you can do to keep a couple of kids from not smoking for the potential health risks that it imposes, then you should do it. And so, I'm coming at it from both sides, like you are. It's not an easy decision.
A couple of vendors, because again, I'm trying to do my own homework. I talked to a couple of our retail establishments, just again about the whole thing. And I was astonished by one of them specifically telling me that you wouldn't believe the parents that come in and buy the tobacco product, whether they're electronic or combustible. Yeah. Clearly that's an issue. This is one specific, I can't say for all of them, but this is one specific establishment.
I'm sure you're right.
There's somebody who's over the age of 20.
Somebody's buying them.
Right.
Absolutely.
My sense, this is
With
the
same
line of
philosophy.
defense
It's like
to protect the children. That's what we have. And this is always going to be there whether the task force comes up with additional things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we may as well go with this as we have. And then, as John said, add a task force to do it so the study can come up and
I think the task
get
force
the
is
other
just
avenues.
separate from this, right?
I know Chris
Start
is,
protecting children as quickly as possible. Timing-wise, I'm not crazy about either July 1st or that one, but sometime date should be there, so it's fine. July 1st is also fine for me.
I know you've got a lot written there, and I'll just give my
It's
last.
just a motion.
I'll just give my last comment. This isn't easy. But we're a board of health, You know, and you tell your kids when they're little, don't touch the stove, right? Don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. And what happens? Every kid touches the stove and they learn, okay, don't do that again. Every retailer that we've heard is basically said, and attorneys have said, well, we all know smoking is bad. And I don't think that it's by mistake, and I don't want to, you know, piggyback this, but look at what's on the table, you know, tonight. You know, we're talking cancer, we're talking youth, we're talking protecting our youth in this community. And do you put people over profits? I do, because if we can save one life, and you know, I didn't agree with the comment tonight, you know, but if you can save one life and we choose not to do it, then shame on us is what I'm saying. And you know, some people will say, okay, you know, there's 300 million people in the world and the Ashland Board of Health saved one life. Okay, I'm good with that. I am really good with that. Or the pain and suffering that, you know, the story you tell about your friend being on oxygen, or you know, I look at my family members who were big-time smokers, and you know, they died miserable deaths. And why did they smoke? Well, because everybody else did. I think if we restrict access, we're doing the right thing. Does it solve the problem? Absolutely, it does not solve the problem. And I just want to stress that our work doesn't stop here tonight. If we do ban it, I don't think we do it, but I mean, we have to put people over profits. That's just,
Well, I
you know,
don't
that's just where I
disagree with
come
that, and you're right, that, you know, that is the number one thing, is that we are a Board of Health.
One can earn the money but not the life.
I'm sorry?
One can earn the money but not the life. You
Yeah,
cannot earn it.
yeah. All right, Chris, you got to.
All right, I'm gonna make a motion. I think it's gotta come to a motion at some point.
It does. It's
So
late.
I'm gonna make the first one. I move that we accept the tobacco regulations, including the modifications to the draft presented tonight, to take effect on January 1st, 2020. Additionally, a task force will be formed within 60 days with the purpose of exploring the impact of tobacco regulation and additional measures to address the statement of purpose in the regulation and the concerns of the town of Ashland citizens and businesses.
So Chris has made a motion.
Second that.
KG seconds. Further discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
All right, it's a 4-1 vote. Miles, why don't we take a 2-minute break, and then we'll reconvene and conduct the rest of the board's business. January 22nd Board of Health meeting back at 9:38 from our second break. We just finished up our tobacco and vaping and juuling conversation, and that leaves on the agenda left, if I'm not mistaken, just the health agent's report, in which we'll conduct with the FY19 budget. So with that, we'll turn it over to the birthday boy, Mr.
Well,
Oram.
thank you.
What a way to spend your birthday.
I know it. Well, why don't we start with the budget? The budget's in good order. We're within the required percentages, the FY19 budget, but we really need to move along with the FY20 budget. And I provided the board with two different reports. One was a general report of why having a full-time public health nurse will free up my time to do other projects. And the other one was sent today, and that was the data that I spent quite a bit of time getting.
Question on the 19 one, Mark, just,
Yeah.
so for tobacco, for food, did Tom, did the food inspector increase his hours?
He's trying his
Okay.
best to work
Okay, that's
17
fine.
hours a week.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's been putting in more hours, but like with the snow, it prevented him. He came
No,
out.
that's fine, that's
yeah.
good, I just,
He didn't come out Saturday, but he came out Monday, yesterday,
Yeah.
actually, so.
okay, sorry.
And I have Nancy here, just so you know, our public health nurse.
Thank you, Nancy,
We've been
for
working together on,
pulling the marathon shift here.
yeah. She's gonna be awful tired tomorrow. So, you have the two reports. The one I sent out Friday was a PDF that got chopped off, so that's why the one that's stapled is the one that doesn't have it. I didn't hit the button, as I've been informed, fit to page, and lost almost the whole top of the second page, which talks about the NACCHO standards, as well as how we already make efforts with our neighboring communities on grants, and how we continue to work on the 10 essentials to move forward and get this department hopefully someday accredited, which is another step that health departments are following. And accreditation will require having the proper staff. So the main purpose is to try to get a full-time public health nurse. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. I did explain the best I could the goals of the board, to be proactive, not reactive.
So where's the list, and it's probably here, but I'm shuffling too many pieces of paper, and I apologize. Where's the list of things that are coming off your plate? Is it this one here?
It's that one that is
The 18th
stapled.
report?
Yeah. Well, it's the
Okay, oh,
one,
this one that's stapled?
yeah, you'll see future opportunities on the third page with appropriate staffing.
Oh, okay.
Update 16
So
local
this is what's
regulations.
be coming off your plate if.
Well, that'll be what I'm putting on my plate. What's being taken off is, in the first part, is public health preparedness.
Where are you marking page 2?
Let me,
Let's straighten out which is page 1,
Yeah.
page 2, page 3, and page
yeah,
4.
Please.
yeah. Front, back, and last, third
Which one?
page.
Show me. This is.
There are
what
two
I
different
have.
reports, that's
Yeah,
what's
it's
going
two
on, I
different
think.
reports.
This
So,
is,
if you have the stapled, if you have the one with the punch holes, disregard the one that says January 18th on the
Okay.
top with the punch
So,
holes.
okay, so this one is,
With the punch holes for January 18th, disregard that
okay,
report.
so this is the, okay.
The one I had stapled is the one you want to look
Gotcha.
at.
You have this one?
And like I say, that was when I went to scan it, well, printed as a PDF, that's what happened.
All right, so that, the public health essentials, that paragraph there is would be coming off your plate, Mark?
Not the 10%, I'll be part of that, but what will happen is, when a nurse is available full-time,
that's what he said.
there'll be the opportunity to have the nurse handle the major part, which is emergency preparedness in those meetings. And other meetings will include,
Thank you.
we have regional groups for alcohol and
Yeah, we were looking
substance.
for like a punch list of the things
Yeah, I
coming off
thought-
your plate.
Yeah,
And that's why
basically,
I didn't,
Right.
I have another document.
it's all built into it, but the main thing is the educational, the public health emergency preparedness. But I also attend substance and opioid abuse regional meetings.
That's what the nurse would be doing though,
Yeah,
correct?
oh yes, and other areas would include, never mind the general job description, but what I'm trying to do right now, within time that we have for our public health nurse, is all the medical reserve corps coordination with the chair. And like I say, a good 8 to 10 hours a week is spent in meetings, grants for the same public health emergency preparedness.
What I was looking for, and I'm just gonna put it up there, because I know I just said it, but, so, this is your report of the department, this is what the new person would do, but we're
Yeah.
still waiting for the list of the things that are coming off your plate.
That's it, right there, I just gave you them. The
Those
public
are
health,
them?
the public health emergency preparedness,
Yeah,
it's
just right
pretty
here.
much explained right there.
Well, please clarify, please.
Oh,
I don't want, I
didn't
don't,
know-
listen, it's getting
I-
late, and I
oh,
don't like
that's
doing
okay.
this stuff at this time
So
of
the
night, I want
public health
clarification.
emergency preparedness, it's in the report,
Which section, is that what this is public health essentials?
the January 18th report. And if you go to it, it says right in the 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph, it's mixed in with the report.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
probably
But the
why,
main
so
thing,
it's-
the responsibility of the health, you gotta go down 1, 2, 3 sentences. The responsibilities of the health agent, director, and public health emergency preparedness would be handled by the public health nurse, as it is in other communities of our size that have a full-time public health nurse.
So
As
that's,
noted at past Board of Health meetings, the average time spent is 8 to 10.
Kindly direct me where you're reading, so that.
Oh,
he's
okay,
reading-
1,
he's
2,
reading-
3,
he's
4th
reading this
paragraph,
paragraph here.
3rd sentence.
On page 1?
Page 1, yep.
Okay, all right.
Oh, the responsibilities, there it is. Okay, KJ, down in here.
And I'm
And
throwing it
then
out there
not to
because I.
be facetious or anything like that, I'm not trying to be, but the
Well, there's- I
job
need to make sure,
description would,
just like the last
yeah.
discussion, I need to make sure I'm
Yep.
comfortable with moving
the
forward on a
the
vote.
job description would include the other hours,
We're looking for an
obviously.
itemized list of
Yeah, it's
things
in-
that are coming off your plate.
That's it
But
right
it
there.
says, let me read it.
Yeah.
This is what it says,
Yeah.
that's coming off your plate. The responsibilities of the health agent, director, and public health emergency preparedness would be handled by the public health nurse.
And an average
That's
of 8
what's
to 10
coming off your
hours.
plate onto that person, not what's coming, we wanna know what you're gonna be doing with
Oh,
the
and-
spare time.
Oh, I didn't, that's on the 3rd page, Diane. Future opportunities with appropriate staffing, 3rd page. I thought you all had a chance to look at this Friday or the weekend. So I can bring you through it, it's not a problem, I don't have a problem doing that. So there's about 6, 7, 8 items.
All right, so update 16 local regulations on a regular basis. Title V inspection, provide safety programs in municipal work safe places. Increase training for regulated business community, including food establishments, septic installers and business. Community outreach through media, including cable, internet, and local papers. Public health accreditation, smoking in public housing, environmental tobacco, and other exhaled smoke. So all that would come off your plate
No, that's not, that's what I would
That's
take.
what he's
out.
gonna be able to do with the public
Yeah.
health nurse.
with
I
a
know.
public health nurse. So essentially,
The nurse
be
would
more,
take over.
much more proactive in the community, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Trying to keep to the goal of the board, proactive.
I guess the first question I would have for Nancy, and Nancy, thanks for taking the time to be here tonight. You're a public health nurse who works, what, 5 hours a week right now, here with us?
If I'm lucky, it's 5.
5.
Going over it sometimes.
What is the need in the town of Ashland, in your professional opinion, and very respected opinion, of a full-time public health nurse? How would Ashland benefit?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is
Just pull that a little bit closer to the mic, a little bit closer. There you go.
the first thing that comes to mind is the immunization clinic. We'd like to start with children, because from what I understand, many of the children have been going to a different community and receiving their vaccines there, and, from Ashland. And this is our responsibility to take care of our own children, own students. From what I understand also from the nurse leader for the schools is right now we have 23 foreign-born students in the school system. When we have foreign-born students coming in, the first thing that they need is vaccines. In order to get them into school promptly so that they don't have to miss school or weeks of school, a Board of Health having a vaccine clinic for students would be very helpful. And it's not just the immediate need as far as getting them into school. Many of the vaccines, or several of the vaccines, there's more than one dose required. So it would be that, you know, until they get their own doctor, until they get insurance, until they get their own doctor, that would speed up the whole process for them being able to get into school.
So why is the school nurse cannot do that? Is there a regulation against them administering the vaccines?
Usually, from what I understand, the school nurses are very, very busy with just taking care of sick children, education, that type of thing. I know when I was in Marlboro, the school nurses would tell me they'd see up to 75 children a day, 75 students a day needing care.
But the number is handful, 40 or 50 that you're talking about. The days even for them to do it rather than just burning every day. With the vaccination, it can be done one day.
Doing a vaccine clinic for students, especially if they're foreign-born and we need an interpreter, is very time-consuming. It involves a lot of paperwork and screening forms to make sure that it's safe to give the vaccine to the child. Also, you know, there's times when you have to call the Department of Public Health, get their input as far as what a child could have.
The number of children that you estimate is what, 50, 60, 100?
There's 23.
There's 23 foreign-born in the foreign-born in the Ashland schools right now. However, when school comes, when the time for school to start, a lot of the other students, you know, our American-born students don't have all their vaccines. So there's a big request for vaccines at that time. Because many times the students will get their vaccines at their yearly appointment with their doctor. If it's not their yearly appointment, they may need vaccines to get into school. And from what I understand from the school nurses too, they will send out these forms, you know, at the end of the school year, like in June, telling the parents what the students need, but they don't get them until just before school,
So
or,
what sort
you
of
know,
numbers
haven't
you're
gotten them.
talking about?
Pardon me?
What sort of numbers in terms of number of students that you handle other than the foreign ones?
I haven't started the clinic, so I don't know.
If you do it, but what do you expect the potential number to be?
Did Kitty give you an idea of?
Well, she was supposed to be here tonight, but she obviously couldn't make it, but they're seeing, from what I was told from their health director, 2 to 3 students a week. And I saw her last Thursday at a meeting, and she said, we just can't continue to do this, you know,
But
for
are
Ashland.
they not supposed to finish everything at the beginning of the school?
They're able to go to school for 30 days.
Because they put it off from June to September, why it falls on us. I was just saying to the board members is that, I mean, the school clearly is notifying parents, let's say June. So it should be on the parents
Well,
from June
this
to
is-
September.
Well, I was gonna say, again, this is
Okay.
from my experience in Marlboro. This is what they did, and I miss, you know,
Because the
thinking
23
that.
students are currently enrolled in school, so they're clearly vaccinated to be enrolled. So I know that there was one person that I was helping with, Laura, and they didn't want to wait the 2-week period to get into the clinic, which is understandable. They wanted to get their child enrolled. And they chose to pay out of pocket at CVS to get the vaccinations.
For children?
A young adult. He was, I don't know, 14, maybe, I don't know.
High school. I was gonna
But
say,
it was-
because
yeah,
I didn't think that they did
had an appointment at one
childhood
of the clinics.
vaccines.
They didn't want to wait the 2 weeks, so they chose to pay out of pocket. So that's why I was just curious. And, like, when people, I would think people would go to their doctor's office to get the vaccinations done these days.
But that's the problem, is they can't get the appointment. If there's a lot of, if they don't have their physical, if they don't have it when they get their physical, they're due maybe a later time. They can't always get an appointment just before school in order to get the vaccine.
So Mark, I saw in one of your table with some data, if that's still valid.
Can we just,
Page?
just so we can stay
Oh, okay.
coordinated? So the question was, with the Board of Health nurse, you have a handout, I think, Ron, I just saw in your hand, that's yes. I think that's very important to see. I don't mean to be taken from other communities, but I don't believe in reinventing the wheel either. Nancy's got it right in front of her as well. And I'll get back to you, KG, on those numbers, but this is some of the responsibilities that could be added to, unfortunately, what we're doing right now is disease surveillance and barely finding time to do anything else.
Especially if we get a TB case. That takes up all my time. 5 hours a week is nothing. I'm working at home on that case. I'm going to Monday through Friday, daily visits to watch the person take their medication and to instruct them on everything they need to know, how important it is to continue their medications, not miss any doses. And that takes sometimes it takes a while for people to understand everything that's involved with TB. So that's very time-consuming if I get a TB case.
And you'll see the next one's emergency planning, MRC director, I just pretty much explained it, but the circles have even within them what's built into that. Home visits, camp inspections, Nancy has been starting to do them with me. Screening programs would be proactive. Health education would be proactive. Vaccination programs, Nancy kind of just explained, but she only started with the schools. We're looking at flu vaccinations, you'll see TB
That
programs.
has not been a viable program for us because we have not had actively
And-
getting things done. The community is not responding to our needs.
We believe they would if we started early enough. Because we always, if we had that flu vaccine in hand early enough, they would. Kitty Mahoney, like I said, I wish she was here, said that 200 people from Ashland showed up at the flu clinic. Nancy and Ron were both there. So, I mean, I think we could have a successful either regional planning. Again, Framingham's not expecting just to have them set it up. They expect us to put our efforts into it as well. But we could have our own as well,
Right,
like
but
say, would they have.
The clinics we did, I don't know how many people participated in it.
Well, 300, when Diane was here, she knows, she used to be called the flu lady. We used to get three,
No,
weren't you?
and that's what we were talking, that's why we talked about this before.
I like that
is
nickname, is that true?
Well, yeah, it's great. I mean, that was 29 years ago that I started here. We had 300 people at a clinic, but nowadays people go to their doctor.
Yeah.
Now, people don't come to a walk-in clinic. I mean, they just don't. They just don't come to the Board of Health office for a vaccination clinic. They just don't. It's just, I mean,
But they do in Framingham. and
Yeah.
They do in
went to
Framingham, and
That
also, I also work in Hudson, and we had over 150 people at our clinic in
that's what I would
Hudson.
Well, maybe it
expect to
could be
get
a collaborative
150.
thing, like you said, with
Yeah.
with Hopkinton or
Yeah.
other,
No,
I don't know how difficult that is
we
to
couldn't get
orchestrate.
25 people at a flu clinic for the Board of Health.
No, I don't, I remember
We had to
years ago.
cancel it. Just
Well, this
recently.
past year, but at the
Back
same.
when I was a selectman, we had 500 people show up
Yeah.
at the.
Well, and I think if we had the
Wasn't it? Remember
staffing and
Talking about
promotion,
the-
Yeah, well, that's,
It's all
that's-
about
I
promotion.
think that's what, it's awareness,
I
right? I
think
think
that's-
people would do it,
Yeah.
they would probably forgo going to the doctor, saving a copay.
Yeah.
That's what I saw, I'm not,
only going by statistics that I know
No,
personally, there's 750 employees for the town, and we couldn't get 25 for a clinic.
no, I
I
hear.
mean, I'm
with-
just throwing it out there.
No,
because
I
it's-
hear
That's
you.
a real fact.
But I was still amazed, I realized Framingham's a much bigger community than ours, but I was still amazed
Well-
at, you know, basically
That we had
1,200
200.
vaccines in 4 hours and seeing people that had no insurance to
I mean, that's.
what I would consider to be most likely probably well-to-do people that just got their kids off the soccer field and all 4 of them came in. and they got them. So
Right.
I think if it's well promoted like that is, and that has a history behind it.
Looking at what
right?
Mark has
And
done
we
for
don't.
description, that's a very small part of what
And,
the person
and
would
you're,
do.
right, you're
So-
right, but that's also about,
We would have
you
to
know,
prioritize.
about
that,
being
see.
proactive as much as we can. And if we did it for a few years and we're saying that it's not working, it doesn't mean that we, you know,
Can't
so
change
you.
it, right.
Well, I know, you could put the concentration of your effort elsewhere if this is not going to be.
Right.
That's
Right,
right,
I mean,
that's
if
what
you
I was
tried it,
saying,
didn't
that
work, you just
this
have
has not
I mean,
worked
Yeah.
in a sense
There's
here.
a lot of other things on here
Yeah,
that the
but-
Right,
person
I
would
mean,
be able
there's-
to do, which is the MRC, this would be great off of your.
Could I
program
just
as
make
well.
one comment about the flu clinic also? What I've seen in the past is that families like to bring their whole family at one time to get their flu shots. It saves multiple appointments with the family, and it's just, you know, they can get it all done at one
Exactly what you
visit.
said is what happened. There was, you know, there was kids, parents, grandparents, you know, you're seeing you're registering 5, 6, 7 people at a time. They would just have them, is exactly what you said, and I think
And I think that's the drawing point.
There is another
that
weekend.
they could. Yeah, it was on a Saturday morning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it was very well attended, it
Yeah,
moved. There were a
Well
zillion.
publicized, probably.
Well, that's what I mean. They have the history and they do it, and I think it is well publicized, and I think a lot of people know about it because they've been doing it for so long. So, you know, you gotta start somewhere, just like maybe we did with the smoking tonight. You know, you gotta start somewhere. As long as there's money in the budget for those vaccines, I would take your recommendations over how effective you think it would be.
Yeah, we didn't include it, but I did see Mark in your handout, I mean, a revolving account, the subgrade did a revolving account for.
I'd
mean,
love to do that.
All right, a couple concerns, and Chris is gonna say it's a shameless plug, but all politics is local.
It's true.
But it is
Shameless
true.
plug.
But it is true. And having been a member of the Board of Health for a long time, I know we need additional staffing. My heart tells me we need additional staffing. My brain tells me if I go to Finance Committee with this, we're not getting additional staffing. We have to button this up before we go, before Finance, because I'm not saying, and please, and you guys know that I totally support every effort of everybody at this table, but if we go and say to the Finance Committee, well, we need this because we're gonna run a flu clinic and an immunization clinic, they're not even gonna let us finish the sentence. They're gonna go, next, okay, move on. We need to really build a case of why we need that, and who at this table right now, as a member of the board, feels like we've got that case built.
That's what I was looking at the data here, that is only use 1 year's data, because if you put other years, then we can at least say there's a trend,
Yeah.
there's an increased load of work, then we can argue that way, but I don't have that information.
Sure, we do have 2014, but my plan
How about 15,
is to,
16, 17?
it takes
even?
almost 10 to 15 hours to pull that data. I spent a good 7 hours today and 4 hours a week ago, about 11 hours average. So I was gonna pull 2017 next.
Yeah, it may help from next time onwards to have a spreadsheet opened up with all of these
Yeah.
categories. As you do it, you
But
add up.
that's not for the public health nurse, that's my workload.
I understand.
Yeah.
But
And
your
John's.
workload is really what I think we need to really focus on.
Well, it's, as you can see,
Because
it's a
if
tremendous
we can,
workload.
if we can prove a case to free up your workload,
Yeah.
which we
This-
all know is overburdened.
This is definitely a major
But if we've done
workload.
this 2 years in a row already, you shouldn't have to reinvent that way, you should
Well,
probably.
we didn't do this last year. We
What
weren't
did you
going
use
for
for
another
justification?
position. We just didn't have the position request last year. So there were no numbers of this nature.
Okay, I know
We
you
weren't
said when we
doing
started
annual
this process, the board
reports.
said they've been working on this for a
Don't-
couple of years.
Goals,
and
we
they
had goals and objectives, which we gotta put together.
Don't we do these things in the town report?
We don't have a town report right now because management understands not just our department, how under-resourced we are. To pull data together is very difficult. Data management's one of your 10 essentials, though. I agree
Town
with you,
report costs a
KG.
lot of money, that's why we printed.
Well, we
And
were
other towns
told,
put out all these data.
yeah,
It used
Now,
to be
do-
great when we did it.
but I
know what
plan
years
on
this
getting
is from?
more together.
This is from, I assume this is
Nancy,
from
this is
Massachusetts?
That's
here.
from January 1st, 2018 to December 31st,
Okay, and this is for
2018.
all of Massachusetts?
No,
That's Ashland.
Okay. So,
Just to back up a little bit, John, when you mentioned about when you go before the Finance Committee, also the emergency planning is very time-consuming. And so, that's another important aspect to consider.
And I agree 1,000%. And I will always try to stay positive, but a couple years ago, at town meeting, when the town had $2.4 million of free cash, I stood up at town meeting and said, we have an opiate crisis in this town, and then I think this town should put a stake in the ground and invest in a assistant. And one of the jobs in the town would have been to combat the opiate crisis, and I'm over it, but I haven't forgotten it. I got screamed at on town meeting floor saying that it was irresponsible for me to be bringing that up. So, I don't think that, then we went and hired, rightfully so, or arguably so, a person whose job description we cannot get upon multiple requests, and we don't know what this person does or what this person gets paid. And we have a social worker that this board has yet to have any dialogue with, and we don't know what that person gets paid. Yet, this board, I think, is confident in that we need more staff here. So what we have to do is we have to have a buttoned-up, documentable proof. This is what we're missing. This is what we're not doing. This is where we have failed the public type of presentation, so nobody can refute it. I don't feel like we have that yet.
I'll agree with that.
Move to take this
What's that?
Nancy did.
Is this for this last year, 1 year?
2018.
And does it quantify some time in this at all, or any way to work up some timings? How long does it take for each of these, and then?
It depends upon the case. I don't think, I mean, other than TB, TB is through the entire course of the treatment, which is at the minimum 6 months.
That's one thing that would help, because numbers, cases is fine, but how much time is spent on that is vital to know, so that it gives us an accounting of what all timing is needed for nurse, so that we can allocate the nurse's time in different aspects of it, but without knowing how much time it takes for you. I'm sure it does take time, but we got to prove it.
I'm happy to volunteer, but I just think, and as Mark, as you know, I'm in a regional Rotary Club, and I have a lot of contacts in my Rotary Club from Natick. And
I have the job description right in front of me.
But, you look at Natick's health department, they have a director, they have an assistant, they have an administrative assistant, and they just invested in 2 people inside them, and one of them I have dealings with in my Rotary Club, just to combat the opioid crisis. Now, granted, we're not Natick, we don't have a mall to justify our means or anything like that. But what I think what we have to do is we have to sit there and say, our neighbors have this. Framingham has this, Hopkinton has this, Sudbury has this, Natick has this, Southborough has this. And I think, I know, but just because I've had interactions with them, they all have much more staffing than what we have. And I'm painting with a broad brush, but and we gotta dig down a little bit and say, okay, well, what do these people do? And the Ashland Board of Health office, if I'm not mistaken, and Diane, you'll be the first one to correct me, is the only one that does not have an assistant position in the entire town. I'm talking DPW, I'm talking police, I'm talking fire, I'm talking school, I'm talking town manager's office, I'm talking town clerk's office, I'm talking, maybe assessors doesn't have one.
The assessor is considered the assistant.
Right, okay, but you know what I'm saying, we could possibly be the only department that doesn't have an assistant in our department. And I know we're talking about a nurse, but a nurse assistant, it's a body, right?
Yep. Well, and I think a very important body.
Right, absolutely.
Public health nursing is a forgotten need of our 10 essentials in public health.
And the town's not getting any smaller, it's only getting bigger, which is a great thing.
That's why I need numbers to justify, that's what I'm asking.
Right, oh, I agree.
If you have a trend saying the population has gone up, the needs have gone up, we need to quantify whatever that we can quantify. and tell them.
Very
That's important.
difficult to quantify new programs that are not existing, not new to other towns, and that's prevention programs. I'm looking at Natick's job description, I showed you Sudbury's. We don't do 1/10 of that,
But,
because we only have, and what I could do to make this easy, if you want to quantify it, will be more qualify the need for these prevention programs if we want to keep moving on as a accredited health department. And public health nursing is a serious need. I'm not saying we don't need an assistant health agent as well, we do.
No.
But you can't ask for it all.
But Mark, what I'm saying is, let's rewind, and I don't know what the number is, is it 8 or is it 10 years? But 8, and I'm just throwing out a number, and correct me if I'm wrong, 8 years ago, we didn't have a farmer's market. Is that a fair statement? 8 years ago, we didn't have a corner spot.
That's right.
8 years ago, we had less retail establishments, right?
8 years ago, you had less elderly population.
Okay, so.
Your population's
okay.
gone up at least 5,000 from 12 to 17.
Okay,
In
that's
fact,
the data
that's
we
in my-
need.
Right.
That's the data
Not
we
in
need.
It's in your report.
That's why I'm asking.
It's very hard to
think one
read
of these
that
things is
report, and I
septic
think
system
that's,
that you
maybe
do.
you can
You know?
We have been
simplify
doing
it.
septic system for ages here.
Yeah.
If
Do
you
you-
had the data for it, then you could say, look, the numbers have gone up.
Do you have historical data, and maybe we just focus on these 4 things I just said.
Yeah.
Prior to the farmer's market, which I don't think the general public understands, what, the farmer's market is one of the greatest things that's happened in Ashland in a long, long time, so I'm not saying anything. But the demands of your department are huge, and I don't think people understand that. And the only person who does it is you. The
the
corner
Well,
spot,
until-
wonderful
until-
thing. The only
But-
person who does it. And when
Dragonfly.
Mark is at the farmer's market or at the corner spot or or working with the elderly housing places, he's not doing other things.
In all in all
So we
respects,
need
though,
that data.
Tom does the inspections when he can. I've been
Right.
doing farmers markets for him even this summer. But it's the pre-work that he's not here during the day to do. You will see that in my final bullet. I've done last year, I did 165 reviews and reporting on food establishments.
I think we need to set some time aside.
I mean, that's
To
right,
digest all
that's
of
right.
Mark's
Yeah, that's in the
data
back
and-
there.
Try the butterfly festival now.
Well, I think we need to, I think we need to come up with a
Dragonfly,
workshop.
dragonfly,
And
right,
kinda
sorry.
like what we did downstairs, and we get the whiteboard out, and we
Right.
just
This will
kinda,
be some good data for you.
that is good data.
Yeah.
But I wanna
But
know
for
what
the-
this
for
was
public
10 years
health-
ago, though, too.
Yeah, I can give you 2014, we already have it.
Okay?
You
That's-
also have the,
When we were
the
doing that.
summary
in the
report that you
report.
submit to the DPH. That will have the data too. It's
Yep, for the
short form of it,
inspections.
So that will be easier to work with.
Yeah. That doesn't include the reviews, though.
It
Lot
doesn't,
of-
but
a
it
lot of
does
work
tell you
goes
the
in-
number of inspections, all that stuff.
Well, we're gonna
And the
have to.
number of establishments, if you can get a trend on it, then it's easier to.
A lot of work
establish.
goes into the reviews nowadays, especially new facilities, new food establishments. Look around town, we've had several over the past years. And it's just not one visit and review. We're doing a review of a facility in town that we've had about 5 or 6 reviews with the person.
You need to put the number of reviews happen.
I did.
Typically, how long does it take for each review? That's an estimated time, those things that will
Right.
add up. So,
We have to be ready, because the finance committee gave us a courtesy, we have to be ready for February. And I don't know that this is the exact date, but we probably have to be ready by February 4th. Today is January 22nd. We don't have a lot of time. I think we have a lot of information, and it's not, it's like what your mother said, it's not what you said, it's how you said it, So I think if we take this information, compile it differently than the way that we have it presented now, we might find that we have 90% of already what we need. If you can get us some historical data from like 14 and 2010, I think it would add value to the presentation. But to Diane's point, I think we gotta graph it out. This is what we were doing, this is what we're doing today. Do you see that Mark is spending 6 hours a week today that he wasn't spending 5 years ago, and that's why we need a public health nurse? Mark is spending
To
six,
free up some of that
to free up some of that
so-
time. We have to
And I-
justify it.
And I also think that at 5,000 senior residents would be more of on a priority list to me than potentially
Yeah,
23
that's-
seniors for a flu clinic. That's where my,
Mhm.
we're, 40 hours is gonna go fast with the public health nurse.
Mhm.
But I think that if we look at the list of responsibilities, obviously, which, we'll be able to tweak it over time because the responsibilities don't change, just like any position. But I think that if we prioritize those things, so
Right. Yeah, priorities, yep.
But having a full-time public health nurse is almost like having two positions, because I would be somewhat of an assistant to Mark by taking over some of his responsibilities,
Absolutely.
in addition to being able to initiate more programs for the public
Well,
health
that's why
nursing.
that list of what was coming off Mark's plate was very important, because we need to use that as a selling point as well.
Mhm.
So what does everybody's schedule look like next week?
I am off.
You're out of
So
town,
what,
right?
how long,
I'm leaving tomorrow and coming back on the 5th.
Any
To attend
day,
the
but
meeting.
I can't do Wednesday, but any other day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, whatever you want.
I can do any day next week, it just has to be after 7 o'clock, unfortunately. You can't do anything? Well, if we have a quorum, we could, I mean, not that, I understand that, but-
Well, or either that, or you know how the board put together a two-member task force almost. Nancy's here on Tuesdays. Maybe someone that could meet with Nancy and I on a Tuesday, like next Tuesday.
Yeah, like I said,
nobody
I-
I don't think is available during the day to meet.
Yeah, like I said, I can be available any night next
Oh,
week, but I'm not,
okay.
I have commitments all throughout the day next week. I mean, I like what you're saying, we could do a task force that we could meet, but.
Do you need Nancy, but you couldn't sit down with them? and-
Well, Nancy's got the knowledge of what a public health nurse can do.
That I thought you already.
And I thought I pretty much explained it and showed.
Well, I think we have that.
Sudbury went through the same process, so that's
We
why
just
you
need to
have
work on the
Sudbury's
presentation.
We just need to
information.
work on the
Then
presentation.
get the numbers straight out and then tell them where the savings coming,
Do you
where
want to
they.
shoot for the 5th?
It's too late.
Do we know that
What
they're
if-
meeting on the 5th?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But we said we would be ready for when they called us in February. It's still January, so we still have time. Right, usually
We
meet on
meet
Tuesday.
Same night we meet.
Yeah.
The
You both want to work on it, John, Diane?
Well, I'm not opposed to meeting on a Monday, but if me personally, I don't like to make a presentation that I make on a Monday and make it on a Tuesday.
agree.
I like to,
Right.
go over it, rehearse it, wordsmith it,
Maybe it would make sense tomorrow to talk to the finance committee and try and figure out when in February.
I mean, even if, I mean, I
That's
would
right.
do,
It
I mean,
makes a huge
if-
difference. February's still 28 days.
No, it does, but
I mean,
at the same thing,
I'm
I
with
wanna
you.
get this done.
No, I'm
Right.
with you.
Right,
completely
I hear what
in
you're saying.
concept.
Right.
But we could burn 20 minutes trying
Right.
to figure out
Right.
something and not come
It's
to
that
anything
with
that we don't
6,
need
7
to.
people doing it all.
but the other option is
Thursday
if we
night?
could always meet and just put something together, because we have all the, they have all the data
We have it,
here.
right. I think we
Good.
just need to meet and put together a presentation, that's all, but if nobody's available next week, then we'll do it next week.
How about Thursday?
Well, I
this
mean,
week?
we can meet as a quorum of 3, I mean, I know KG's gonna be out of town and Chris has other commitments, but.
And just do a working session versus having
Yeah,
a meeting.
Yeah, we're not gonna have a meeting, we'd set it up as a working, just like we did downstairs.
Whatever day you want.
Just get the whiteboard out and let's go,
Yeah.
No formalities, just get to work, right? I mean,
John,
you guys tell me the date.
Nancy,
I just wanted to back up a little regarding the vaccine clinics, because our long-range goal is to do an adult vaccine clinic too, because what I have found, and maybe the doctor can speak to this, is that many times doctors don't carry adult vaccines. So that would be, because they don't always get a lot of requests for them, and, the expiration date, et cetera. But that would be in addition to the children's vaccine clinic. And also a shingles clinic, we were looking at
And
continuing
just
that.
because I'm grumpy and it's 10:15 at night, what doesn't a doctor's office carry, just for my own knowledge?
shingles.
I honestly don't know, but I
I
have
can
found
tell
in the
you
past that
shingles.
Many
Some
people
of
have
them
told me
have-
their doctor doesn't carry.
Some of them they carry, shingles they don't carry
I can
because
walk into my doctor's office
I
and
just
take.
had my physical today, so I didn't
Unless
take
it's a
one because I
pediatric-
was.
I would
going
think
to
they
work,
would
so-
carry a tetanus, but again, like I said, because of the expiration date, if they don't get a lot of requests for these vaccines, they don't carry them.
It was a moot point. It's actually was a rhetorical question. I shouldn't have probably asked it, but it's just, the reason why I'm
love your
targeting the clinic. Yeah, well, the reason why I keep talking about the clinics is because when we sat and talked about what we wanted this person to do, was our first priority was not immunization clinics, because we did not include $3,000 in our budget for vaccines. So when we were talking about it and we sat as a group and made the prioritization, it was not at the priority, and that's why I'm trying to kick it down to the bottom of the list, because there's so many things, and we need to prioritize it, whether it's 20 hours a week or 40 hours, it's going to go really fast with, the list is great, as I said, we have the data here of the potential of where we can grow it into.
I just want to mention that too, because you said we don't have the $3,000 to purchase vaccine. Commonwealth Medicine works with insurance companies, and we get reimbursed not only for the cost of the vaccine, but for an administration fee. So it ends up, we end up with more money than.
Yeah, we need to get a position, and then we'll have to work on it. I mean, it's gonna be a lot for this person to do, hopefully.
But
Hopefully get
I'm glad you brought up, the population is changing, and with the change in population, especially with the senior population, there's gonna be more needs. I spoke with
lot.
Joanne Duffy, and she definitely would love to see a public health nurse assist in her programs.
Do we know most of the Ashland residents are all vaccinated already, flu shots and things like that?
That's hard
Do
to
we have a
find.
data available?
I would go with most, only because most would probably, be common
we
sense,
get
but I
any
think there are
people
people.
Can I get numbers? Is there
But I agree with
My
Diane,
estimate-
our
He
our
wants to
focus
know
of a
if
public
most of
health
the
nurse was
Ashland
not.
Residents is
doing clinics.
vaccinated.
Now, our next regular scheduled
Oh, the
Board of
senior
Health
population.
meeting would be February 4th.
Fifth, no?
Excuse me, 5th, I'm looking, it's 5th.
Yeah, I can't come up
So,
with-
and what I'm saying is I can be available Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday next week for what I envision is an hour and a half, anytime after 7. We can do it as a subcommittee, we can do it as a quorum of 3, or we can not do it at all, but I think we gotta do it, but what works best,
I can do Monday or Tuesday.
I can do Tuesday or Wednesday.
that's right, because he can't do Mondays.
So we'll do Tuesday.
Let's do Tuesday at
do-
7 o'clock.
Okay,
Does that work?
Yep.
I'll bring pizza again.
okay.
Is it a working session?
It's a working session. We'll have to
Posted
post,
Board of Health?
We'll have to
Okay, yeah,
post, yep.
posted.
because we'll have a quorum there. Yep, and we'll be making decisions,
Can
hopefully.
you be here?
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll
If
let you
can,
know.
can.
We'll let you know what's going
You
on.
can help, very helpful.
But I mean,
Chris will FaceTime you.
Makes a difference.
Can we FaceTime you too?
but Mark, we need that 14 data, and if you have
I
that,
already
if you have that 10 data,
How many hours?
10.5 hours.
10 and a half, yeah.
and then we'll just work off the white,
I already had the money.
and we'll work off the whiteboard, and we'll,
That's just my data.
can you bring this?
Yeah,
No,
the nurse data,
To me, it's a big thing, because
There's nothing more in this world that I hate than a PowerPoint presentation, but I want to create a PowerPoint presentation that night. So at least then we have a document that we can look at and bring it back on the 5th,
everybody was on the same page.
and then say, okay, this is a good document, it's not a good document, or something like that.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I respect
Are you gonna be joining us?
yeah, she's gonna.
Are you good at PowerPoint?
I think it was disrespectful.
No, that's,
Yeah, I can navigate it.
Okay.
And Nancy will be here too. I think it's important because she's been a public health nurse for some
Chris is not there.
different towns.
Okay. One thing before we do go, and we took a break, but we did not sign our historic
So
legislation that we
what I
put
was
in there.
just gonna, I actually had written this down. We didn't sign it, but we don't have a
Clean
a
copy.
clean copy. So what I'll do is I'll get a clean copy to Laura tomorrow, and we can sign it at the next meeting.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page on that, and that we did,
Will KG be able to sign it at the next meeting?
no, but he can sign it after he gets
I'll
back.
handle it.
Oh, okay.
Come straight from the airport.
You're gonna be out.
With my bag.
Or you can come tomorrow
No,
and
you
sign
don't
it.
have to.
Or, I mean, no, you're leaving tomorrow,
Actually,
right?
the board
You're
members
leaving
can come in anytime.
I can sign anytime, so wait.
Yeah,
I mean, we do have a clean back page, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Signature page, don't we?
Right.
Yeah,
And
actually,
Laura
we do.
could easily copy one off right now.
I was gonna say, we can do a
Same
clean
time.
copy
Yeah,
page
we can
right
do
now,
that.
yeah.
Is that gentleman looking for us?
I think
Although,
that's
no,
our,
the
that's our
signature page
reporter.
is gonna say draft on it.
The signature page
I
one?
think so, yeah.
I don't think-
Laura, do you
Because
have a
the
clean
draft is
copy?
on
I
the
know
whole
you're gonna
document.
try to get one ready. Laura has a clean
Because I voted
copy.
against it, I would not
Yeah.
sign it, correct?
Well, it's a vote of the board.
Right.
That is, I'm actually gonna write a piece one day about that. If,
Mm-hmm.
to me, a board decision, 5-0, 4-1, 3-2, is all the same to me personally.
Right.
Me personally. Just because you voted against something, like, if I wanted to dig in tonight with Chris, I could have voted against Chris's motion, even though I supported it, but I didn't support the timeline.
Right.
That's the
Does that mean I
clean
didn't
page, but let
support
me
it, or did I,
see.
you know?
Yeah,
But it's a board vote, it's a board vote, that's,
That's
yeah,
true.
just because you voted against
You're
it.
right.
The signature doesn't represent your decision, because you voted against it.
Yep.
and-
It
and
just
so what
doesn't
your
say when
signature
it's to
really
be
represents
effective.
is
That will
okay.
have to
that
be
you
put
support
on
the
the front
board,
page.
Right,
that the board
What's that
decided.
say?
no, this says 45 days,
Oh, geez, that can't be signed.
right, right.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, can we alter it now and print it?
Yeah, you can.
I
Can
can,
you
if you
alter
put
it
me in front of
now,
a
Laura?
computer, I can,
Yeah.
because I have.
It just has to say January
I
1st,
can log into
2020.
Dropbox and pull it.
That-
But you know what?
Then we don't all have to
You'll
come
have
back.
to sign it
I
right
just-
now.
2020 or
I
2021?
might be able to forward you that.
Are we all set?
Are you gonna sign it?
No,
You're not gonna sign it, okay.
You- Okay.
but I think we're done with regular. I have to go home and study. That's cool.
Well,
tomorrow.
Diane's gonna leave, and we're gonna take 2 minutes to sign it, because Diane said she's
Okay.
not gonna sign it anyway.
Okay.
But thank you, and we'll
Yep.
see you, what
I
did
think
we
I have
agree,
it on my
Tuesday?
Dropbox.
Tuesday.
Tuesday,
Yep.
okay. Thank you.
At 7?
Thank you for making
7?
it, Diane.
Yeah.
Tuesday at 7.
Uh,
Wait, I gotta get a hobby.
Laura, I'm just gonna leave this here.
Tobacco, here we
We'll
go.
clean up,
Turn your
we'll clean
car
up.
on?
What'd you say?
Did you turn the car on?
Darn right I did.
I did.
I did.
It's nice out there tonight, it's around 18 degrees.
Only 5-minute idling.
There you go, you know the
I
anti-idle
feel like you're
laws.
picking up, though.
To
Get
adjourn,
it.
or?
She's idling the car. You have to issue a ticket. for
No,
her.
Oh,
she has 5
I
minutes.
knew he was going, as soon as he asked you, I knew where he was going with
She
that.
has 5 minutes.
As soon, I was like, no way.
Don't worry, it shuts off.
As soon as, you know.
Oh, here it is.
Right, so all we have to do is sign it. Thank
night,
you, Diane.
everyone. All right,
Have a
see you
great
later.
night.
See you. Bye-bye. Good night.
Send.
Are you doing it, or is Diane? or-
Yeah, I'm sending the Word document to Diane,
Oh,
and
To
then,
Laura?
and then we can just pull out to Diane.
Are we adjourned?
To Laura, hang on a
Are we
second.
adjourned? or-
No.
Oh, okay,
No.
I'm sorry.
Diane just left. Is Caesar out there still? Caesar! Is he out there still?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. We're almost done, buddy. We'll be 2 more minutes.
That's right.
We did pass it, though. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, 2 more minutes when we'll be done.
What was I doing?
This isn't how your night thought you didn't, your night wasn't gonna go, was it?
No, wait,
Yeah.
I have a
hang on.
pair of.
I'm having a,
Do you get the bad Clark Kent jokes and everything like that?
Remember
More than the ropes?
You don't know who Clark Kent is?
On the rope. Yeah.
Oh,
I-
okay.
I bought,
No, I mean,
from
right,
John
right. I was a journalism
metal,
major in school, so people used to know.
Rings,
Mm-hmm.
so it's easier.
I was
to put
broadcast
on
journalism.
time.
Yeah.
So I'll get it for you. I'll prepare one.
I can't figure that out.
Yeah, you
See, John, here's your 2000.
How many ways can you twist yourself up until you
Food
figure out?
Okay,
I
that's
can't
perfect.
figure a way out of this
There.
maze.
See, if we can go, in
didn't-
2014,
It's so
he did
frustrating,
this,
'cause I
but
know it's
last
gonna
year
be
he
I'm gonna
did
see,
this.
I got 2000, we used to do annual reports back then.
I remember.
But see, I've included all the reviews now too, not just the
Right.
inspections.
See, but if we can go and say, it was X, and now it's Y,
I always.
But you know, you're gonna see, because I've included the reviews now on housing and hoarding, that's gone up
Exactly. Well,
tremendously.
there's-
I can't figure
there's
out
Oh,
how to
yeah.
get it from my
That's
Dropbox
for sure.
Oh,
to you in
I can
editable mode. Let me figure it out.
can you just edit it, the
Yeah.
one line? Yeah.
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 I wanna
Do
see.
you have the Word file?
not that-
Oh, you know what, this,
I sent you
this
just the
little
PDF
laptop
of the edit
doesn't,
one.
have a. Word
Send
on
it to me, Chris, if you want to more 'em.
Yeah.
I gotta, hang on a second.
I'm
Gotta get it
online
out of
right
his
now.
Dropbox.
I'm just, the problem is I've been going since 5:30.
No dinner.
and I'm,
Well, I'm glad Diane said it, because I was gonna say I'm hangry myself.
Mark.
This is really a behind-the-scenes look at what government really is, yeah. There you go, thank you, Mark.
Function?
That's right.
Is that what this is called?
What's more effective what they're doing on the national level, isn't it? It's his fault. No, it's his fault.
It's true.
You maybe want to bring your pizza over to the post office.
There you go, yeah.
You're gonna be adding to this, Nancy, so, your time, so,
Oh.
whatever it is.
Are you-
Okay.
7511, that's you, right? Yeah, okay.
Add the time like KJ was saying onto that spreadsheet.
I can't do it.
Can't do it? Can you-
Unless I get on the computer and log into my Dropbox and download it.
Is it that urgent that we actually sign this now, or should we just do it the next
I mean,
time we're all
we can do it.
available?
I just figured it was simple and easy because we're all there. And Diane said she wasn't gonna do it, but if we can't do it, we can just do it.
Why don't we just do it next week?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
How about a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh,
Second.
Second.
you had something before?
No, no.